That's gonna be 1.
This one. 1? Doesn't matter on the headset thing?
Nope. Plug in anything you want. from Minneapolis.
It's Saturday. No. How's it going, everyone? We are just waiting for pizza to finish up. We are in our new space. Matt is going to be coming in a bit later. He had some late evening, late afternoon things to attend to, so what do we got going on? Yes, the couch is a real piece of furniture. Isn't that funny? Perfect. I should probably go get my specs.
Yeah. Where are those, by the way?
Pizza is coming. Pizza is in the oven. So,
Yeah.
it's like Totino's.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
Do this.
Oh, there you go. Ooh.
That's the Burt Reynolds.
The Burt Reynolds. You just need a groovy mustache, man. So for you in the stream, I'm not sure what it sounds like. It might be a little echoey, but that's just the way it's going to be for now.
Yeah.
From now on.
Explain to them our technical setup, how we've separated the two out, because...
I will do my best. So we have a kind of a central microphone here. This one here. It's a Blue Yeti. It's just a USB microphone, nothing fancy. It's actually the one I use to record my Lost in Time series with. So that is for the stream only. The actual podcast will be recorded on our regular mics here. So
yeah,
the sound on the podcast will be hopefully a lot better.
Superior to what you're hearing in the stream. We reserve the worst audio for the stream. That's your reward for attending the stream.
Your reward for coming in early is shitty sound. Well done, everyone. Round of applause.
Yeah.
So that's really kind of the nuts and bolts. I think it's going to work out pretty well. It helps us separate the sound so that we can actually produce the podcast
right
as high quality as possible compared to, and still have the stream going on and banter back and forth with all you fine folks.
I wondered if we should adjust the camera just a little bit, maybe go up a little bit and angle it down more so we're not getting quite so much ceiling in it.
Oh, yeah, we can do that.
So let me bring it up.
It's all kind of a work in progress. Oh, there you go.
That better?
Yeah, they get to see my knee.
Oh,
that's nice. That's
yeah.
nice.
Joe's known for his knees.
I am.
I mean,
Knobbiest knees this side of the...
Yeah.
Somewhere.
I don't know, Mississippi? Sure, why not? Yeah.
Mason
Back in
Dixon?
high school, yeah, it was all about Joe's knees with the ladies. So.
Knees and toes, knees and toes.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
I don't.
No one ever does. No one understands me.
So we're gonna get started shortly,
No,
you guys.
there is no arrow in it. Thank goodness.
In what?
My
Oh,
knee.
in your knee, no.
Although I did have it operated on, but not the one that you can. Oh yeah, it is the one you can see.
Oh shit.
So I kind of had an arrow. I had a scalpel in it, maybe.
Yeah, that's close.
So there's
Yeah,
that.
I mean that'll end your adventuring career. If you want.
Well, it hadn't ended yet. It slowed it down a bit.
Yeah.
I just venture out to the pub.
Do the side quests.
It just, well, yeah. I don't do the main quest. That'd be ridiculous.
Yeah. So yeah, as Joe was saying, we're a little light on mats at the moment.
We're short of mats at the moment.
Yeah, we're hoping.
If you happen to have an extra one.
We're expecting a shipment anytime now. And
UPS should be delivering soon.
Yeah. So I think our plan for tonight is a little bit loosey-goosey. We've been dark for a while with a lot of different things going on. So I think what we're going to do tonight is just try to get caught up a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about role play, about story development.
Yeah, it's been a few weeks, so it might be nice to just do some catch up.
Yep, the next installment of the story. We're also going to be taking some, we're going to take questions from chat tonight. So this is kind of a free form thing. So if you've got questions, you can post them in chat and we'll address those as well. And then Matt, when he gets here, is going to be buzzing in. We'll have to go and let him in. So, and he's probably going to be starving, so he's going to want to get something to eat. So we're just going to kind of play it by ear tonight, and hopefully we'll get some audio in there that Joe can salvage for the podcast.
I'm sure it'll be fabulous. Yes, we are exploring the idea of brewing Trager Lager. We haven't really invested much time into that endeavor at the moment, but it is still on the periphery. So that should actually now we probably have a better opportunity to try to screw around with that than we did before. So now that we can stink up Stuart's place with the brewing process. But no, it's still out there. It's definitely not off the table. It's still there. And can you guys hear us okay? I just to make sure that the microphone is picking up decently. Let us know if not. I don't know what we'll do. Probably something spectacular and amazing. Loud and clear. That's what we like. Wow, that's a first.
That is a first.
You mean the shit's working? You know, I probably wouldn't say no if you brought another brewing.
You wouldn't?
No, I wouldn't.
What do you want?
Either one, whatever's easiest. So tonight we have on
You still got your mug, right?
Yes, I do. Because
Can I have a Mountain Dew? Please. Anybody want one?
Any chips?
Do I see that happening?
I hope everyone's doing well. We have had a couple of... whoa! All right.
Is this empty?
Not yet. God damn it. What a dick. I mean, what a dick. Anyway. How's everybody's week going? We've actually had a couple nice, beautiful days here. So
It's been pretty awesome.
taking advantage of the nice weather because I think we hit the 2 days maximum that we're allotted here in this state.
Yeah, we only get two, so you got to choose wisely.
From here on out, it probably will go to really shitty ass, muggy, hot weather, and then straight into the deep freeze.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
We like to get everything coated in a nice covering of moisture and then freeze it solid.
Right.
That's kind of our way.
But for these 2 days, maybe 3 if we're lucky,
yeah.
it's all the reason.
Yeah. And we like saying the word moist.
Moist is nice.
Yeah, it sure is. Now we got Well, I
Jester.
don't know. Is it a good crew or is this kind of like just?
Well, it was, but then Sovereign Jester joined up. Who hacked his account?
Oh, I don't know. Someone did. Dude,
Well
are you texting and driving right now? Because stop it, if you are.
Yeah. Don't be a dork. We want you to arrive here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did he ever send a
We
message?
need someone to move the furniture.
We need a brute to move the furniture. Lord knows Stu and I brutish days are over.
Yeah. Long.
Oh, he's not far.
Okay.
He's just at the sculpture garden.
Okay.
So, Stu's new digs that we are broadcasting from are not far from the vicinity of a couple of really great museums, one of which I posted some pictures from this weekend, from the Minneapolis Institute of Arts, which is a very nice museum in our area. Not far from that is the Walker, which is another... How would you classify the Walker?
Well, it's a museum, but
It's an art museum, but it's more, more contemporary?
it's more contemporary, and they have lots of community activity. Plus, they have the outdoor sculpture.
Yeah, they do have an outdoor sculpture garden, and it's just... Yeah, there's a lot more community activities that revolve around within the Walker area.
That's the classic cherry and the spoon.
Yes, the cherry and the spoon. If you Google Walker Arts Cherry Spoon, you'll probably
Yeah.
hopefully get something that, quite honestly, I'm not going to take
No.
responsibility for what you're going to get on that one. But
Yeah.
anyway, where was I going with that?
We were talking
Just about the general artsy
our locale.
location. It's in an area of Minneapolis called Uptown, which is very kind of loose and I guess more art centric in all its forms. So MCAD, Minneapolis, oh God, the Minnesota, what the hell does that stand for now? I can't remember.
College of Art and Design.
Minneapolis College of Art and Design, or Minnesota, I think it's Minneapolis, is nearby. My daughter actually looked at that, but it's super expensive and very focused, and she wasn't sure if she wanted to be that art focused. She wanted to follow her art abilities and her art and her love and enjoyment of the arts, but not to the nth degree like you really need to be at the MCAT.
Not to the tune of $1 million.
Oh, they are expensive. I mean, it's a decent school, but they are, you know, like any private, you gotta weigh what's important.
Yep.
I mean, they got all facets of the arts, whether it's, you know, interior design and fashion design and just, you know, fine arts, et cetera, et cetera.
That's script.
Oh, that Tom kid, you missed it all. Sorry.
We're done. We just wrapped up.
Thanks for coming. No. We're just actually kind of killing a little bit of time here, waiting for Matt to show up, and while the pizza finishes that
The pizza's done now.
apparently is done that I wasn't told about. So that's cool.
I cut
That's
it and ate a little bit of it. It was pretty good. So.
What else? The Morgue. They had a balloon animal contest, and then he's telling about what he missed. Yeah, we had the balloon animal contest. That was right away.
Open the door.
Hit the buzzer, dude.
All right.
How do we know it's you? Hit the buzzer.
You buzzard?
Matt's here. Let's see.
I want to hear the buzzer. He's looking for the B.
It's on the bottom. It's right next to A. There it is. Hello? Let's see what else we got here. I don't have my specs on, so.
Hey, good.
That was not so.
Oh, that's nice, Russell. Thank you. And say hi to Grandma for us.
Pizza.
Matt's hungry. Matt's hangry.
I'm hungry.
Matt would hulk up, but he's already about that size, so.
You say Hulk up or
Well, I mean, relatively speaking, to the tiny little men that we are.
Wow. Speak for yourself. I'm huge.
Well, I mean, in general physique.
I'm huge.
Huge.
I
Huge.
In my headphones, huh?
Yeah, if you want. We're just chatting people up. We haven't started anything yet.
Oh, I know. I've been listening.
Yeah. Did you hear us scold you about texting in the car?
I wasn't texting. I was talking. I was listening to you talk and I was responding.
Really?
Oh, did you do voice to text kind of thing?
Yes.
God, I never have luck with
How the
that.
hell do you do that with YouTube? I don't even know.
Because I'm awesome.
You are awesome.
Except when you drop your key.
Nice. All right.
This is you.
Boneheart says hi,
Cheese
Matt.
I thought I was by the.
No.
I suppose you wanted by the wall.
Well, no, I was giving you more space because I'm a smaller person.
Oh, that's the nicest thing people have said to me all day.
When the ninja comes through the window.
It's
he'll get
Joe is first.
Well, I'm probably
Hello,
the most
everybody.
capable of handling the ninja.
What do you think?
I mean, really, if we are honest. Well,
God, you guys always come with the best freaking t-shirts. I never have anything
all
anymore.
right, you might have to either get closer or read that out. So,
What's that? Oh,
A t-shirt.
the T-shirt.
can I get close enough for the people to see the T-shirt?
I don't know. Let's see.
Short
close.
There we go.
Holy
Perfect.
cow, that's way too close. Too close. Too close.
It's never too close. Give them a minute to read.
Can you bump your pecs up and down? Does it you know how to do that?
That's not your pecs, that's your shoulders.
I'm trying.
Okay, so the answer to that's no.
The answer is no.
So yes.
Oh, the pizza smells good. For all of the
I
people.
don't think everyone's got
on the internet
I'll get the
who are
camera
not
for
smelling this pizza.
my
It smells
fabulous shirt.
delicious.
Can we read it? There it is. I'll just stand here.
You can tell that it's an aspen tree.
By the way it is.
Because of the way it is.
Wisdom. Wisdom beyond the ages. Alright.
Can I use one of these?
Yep. This is all you. We had a pizza already.
Alright.
Seriously? Yeah, take what you
I
want.
feel like we should apologize for the utter chaos going on at the moment.
We already ate.
I came here to listen to roleplay. These fuckers going on about t-shirts.
They're almost as good.
Oh, see, now I can't read the chat.
I need that.
I do love the open space though. It's kind of nice to be able to wander.
It is kind of weird to be able to wander.
Now.
Of course, people kind of get the surround sound thing while we're moseying around here.
I am growing a Viking. This is my Jedi beard.
Check.
My Jedi beard, but I'll take Viking.
I'm inclined to sit on the couch, but it's sort of revered territory.
Anybody can sit on the couch.
If you want to actually
Stu's casting couch.
sit in it.
You can sit on the couch, but can you use it?
I can't cast on the couch.
No. You're listening to Character Crusade Unbound, Season 2, Episode number 2. I'm Stu. And I'm Joe, and I'm Matt.
We might have to redo
Hey, hang
that.
on. If I'm back here, this sounds like episode 1.
I like it.
Hold on.
No, we're just fucking around. So.
All right, fine. I'll come up here.
No.
No. Oh.
Did you just wipe pizza on his leg?
No, on his own leg.
Hey,
Jesus. Bunch of animals.
Look at that. Nearly identical phone size.
Matt, that wasn't my leg.
This is so
We've been
entertaining.
drinking.
That's mine. Well, it was mine.
It's almost like Red Bull size. Why do they make cans like that?
Well, I don't know, because that's what it came in. It's 12 ounces.
Because is it now a light beer? Because it's lighter?
It's still 12 ounces. It weighs the same.
It weighs the same.
What? I don't know. I was trying something new. God, quit getting down on me. Would you like something?
Oh, I'm good right now. I got this giant thing of tea
Oh, okay.
that very nearly almost completely spilled all over Stu's nice hardwood floor.
Joe's pizza's way tastier than mine.
God damn it.
You also apparently have a giant gaping bite there too, so yeah, nobody should have to watch me eat. I'm sorry.
I don't have a problem with it.
Gaping bites better than. Anyway.
Maw? That's what you're going to say, right?
Maw, yes.
Maw, yes.
Maw.
Can you? Oh no, you can't because I don't have a plug-ifier.
I've got extra
No,
plug fires.
I've got one. I was plugged into my recorder-fier.
Matt's pizza's good too.
The question, Stu, is which one of those pieces did I lick?
What?
Which one of those pieces did I lick?
I don't know.
It's too late now. Oh my god. That was an entire piece of pizza. It's shaped like your mouth. Finish it.
It was a half a piece. Well, you touched
No,
it.
it was fully. You haven't.
Using Joe's napkin anyway.
We're not going to talk about taking it full length. All right, Joe. Number 3, sir.
This podcast is the worst.
Brought to you by
Kowalski's Pizza.
Kowalski's Pizza.
I'm sure they were really happy about that.
Actually, Kowalski's, we would be happy if you would like to sponsor the podcast for.
Waiting for the check.
Not the bill, the check.
Let's do our cold open right now. I don't.
Okay.
It doesn't matter where you are, Matt.
Nope.
It sound good yelling it from the other room, even. Maybe we
It
can
kind of
use it as
sounds
an
like yelling at a
outtake.
bus station, but that's all right.
All right, I gotta start recording anyway. Okay.
Thanks for joining us on the stream.
Yeah, you're all
It's
nuts.
interesting to listen in the car.
How was the sound, Matt? Did it
Not bad.
come through all
Sound
right?
great? Really good?
I'm sure the podcast will sound even clearer, which will give people another reason to listen to us again.
Okay, now, Matt, even though you're chewing and stuff, you're gonna have to get up on the mic, right? Get on the
Yes,
mic.
how can I help you?
Okay.
Is that working?
Yeah. Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
I didn't bring any checks.
That didn't spike too bad.
Now laugh right into the mic like you normally do.
Oh, that spiked.
Yeah, that hurts.
That's a little marker.
Okay, I'm
there.
not gonna do that.
Just make sure to turn to the side like the guy who sings Chocolate Rain.
What?
Chocolate rain.
Oh my word, are you telling me you haven't seen Chocolate Rain?
No, I've
It was like
never
one of the first YouTube videos. Oh,
no.
you're watching it later.
No, I'm not.
Oh, yes, you are.
That sounds awful.
Chocolate Rain. Oh, yeah. Oh, you gotta watch it now.
I wish I understood that.
I've never heard of that.
When you see it, you will know it. And then you will never forget it.
I'm
Okay.
wanting to forget it right now.
I would like the people who are on the
Late
stream
for
who
that.
have listened or seen Chocolate Rain to let us know.
Chocolate
Rain, chocolate rain.
Not that good.
Oh.
I'm ready for cold open if you don't mind eating pizza crust at the same time.
I don't.
Let's do it.
You're listening to Character Crusade Unbound, Season 2, Episode number 2. I'm Stu.
And I'm Joe.
And I'm Matt.
And welcome to the discombobulated show that is Episode 2.
Ooh.
The first episode with the couch.
Nice.
Good luck segueing
I'm
into
done.
the
I'm outta here.
that show.
Well, yeah.
But it's official. It's
Hey, that's all right.
recorded,
I
though.
don't
You
mind.
gotta use it.
I don't
You
mind
gotta use it now.
spending several hours pouring through unusable audio.
Uh-huh. We always produce a lot of unusable audio,
Well, true enough.
and then somehow you manage to use it.
I
at
do.
the end.
We make it work. We make it work. We're resourceful.
Yeah, we're good that way. For sure. You ready, my friend? You want something stronger than tea? Okay, no problem. You got one in there?
The whole.
Perfect. Yeah. Oh my God. Are we ready?
Not any.
We're always
Not
ready.
any. Not in the
You
slightest.
bring me up, Bill.
Bring him up.
You bring me up when I'm down.
I'm gonna raise you up.
This is like
Well, you just got
musical
rickrolled.
I totally did. I know.
Dude. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Character Crusade Unbound. We are happy to have finally made it to episode 2 of season 2. And, you know, let's just say, right? That's kind of what this episode is all about. We have been dark for a while.
He spent so much time typing that.
I know we did.
Sorry, Joe.
And to print it so neatly.
All of that toner.
So, a lot of weird things have been going on, obviously. Moving into the new space, figuring out how we're going to record here, figuring out how we're going to get everything set up. New internet provider. We're working on less hardware than we had before. These guys trying to figure out how to get to this location during rush hour. That's a whole other thing. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. And it has made it actually pretty hard for us to produce some of the content that we would normally produce. However, we are happy to report that installment number 2 of the Ghosts of Yore has been completed. And that is going to be released when, Joe?
In approximately 24 hours from now.
All right, we're going to
Well,
wait
no,
24
that's not true.
hours, right?
24 hours
hours
from the release.
Of this?
From the release of now.
Yes. 24 hours from the release of now.
So
Will be
basically, we're going to release the podcast, and then we will hold back the Ghost of Your story point
Until.
for about a day, which will allow most people to at least listen through the podcast.
Yeah. What we're
That's
trying
kind
to
of the
do,
point of
ladies
that.
and gentlemen, is we're really just trying to force people to listen to the podcast. Because it explains so very much.
Except for maybe this episode, but you know.
Yeah, this episode won't explain anything, really. I mean, not related to.
But we're still gonna
season
hold
2.
the story back.
Yeah, we're holding the story back anyway.
Because we're dicks like that.
Yeah, we kind of are. So,
All right.
anyway.
Anyway,
we go.
serious.
Am I coming through it all?
Yeah, say something.
A wee bit. Look at that. I gotta eat the mic today.
Don't eat it.
Just eat it.
Am I up to?
Yeah, that was-
Eat it.
Okay, I'm setting Matt.
I'm on green though. You're on red.
Oh
Oh yeah.
yeah. That's for
This is what happens when you don't get here on time to do
What
a
I-
check.
What I just done did there was forgot. Now I got it fixed.
Thank you.
Way to fix
Okay,
it.
now eat the mic and see what happens.
Yes. Hello.
Oh,
Okay, that's too much.
That's way too much
This
for
is
him.
about, I think, what we want, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
Too much?
this is the range that we want to be in.
Okay. Good.
Okay,
Well
Joe,
done.
say some things.
I'm saying some things right now. I'm glad to be here. You can tell that I'm glad to be here because
of how you are. Yeah.
Because of the way it is.
Because of
Yeah.
the way it is.
So,
Okay.
I think that's.
what kind of things would you like me to say?
Just the normal things.
You want to read my shirt?
I can. Warning.
Talk about the normal things you talk about. You know, your
Weather, traffic,
beer, your junk.
travels, the beard.
Boy, we don't have enough time for that.
Ooh, good
Are you
comeback.
saying it's a long story?
Well, I'm not saying it's a short one.
You've heard of the Odyssey.
It's epic.
Yeah. How are we feeling, guys? Are we good?
I think we're good. Thank you very much for indulging my microphone inputtiness.
All right.
You're impotent?
Don't go there.
Inputtiness.
Inputtiness.
Okay.
It's a real problem with his input.
That's going into outtakes. You know,
Well, you don't know. I mean,
How much input are we talking about here?
4 inches, Matt.
Just the
4
auxiliary.
inches.
That is just the auxiliary. That's
What-
kind of like, yeah, we'll leave it. Welcome to the Howard Stern Show.
Yeah. Excellent. Well,
what were we talking about?
I have no idea. What is this podcast even about? Do you remember? Anyone remember?
Pizza.
Role play.
Okay.
Which, great segue.
I know.
That was perfect.
It was perfect.
There's hardly a better way to do that.
Okay.
I can't think of one.
All right. Let's just.
I really like this setup.
And-
I'm just going to interrupt again and say I really like the way that you've got this set up. Today.
Thank you.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
so much less cramped
Yeah. Well, you
It's
know.
nice.
and hot and surrounded by sound-absorbing blankets
Right.
Well, I mean,
and vacuuming.
it's hot.
Well,
It
yeah,
wouldn't be the
that's
same if
different.
you weren't here, Joe. That's
Well,
for sure.
True that, but you know, I like to be modest.
I find myself with an inordinate amount of time on my hands to arrange all this, so it's done right.
Yep, absolutely.
Um,
I noticed that you left the moon of Endor off back there.
Yeah, we're gonna turn that on later as it gets darker.
Yeah, it was
outside.
really kind of washing everything out.
Okay.
People couldn't see Stuart's beautiful face.
Well, the
Well,
glare
it's
off
going to
my
look a little
head
bit like a
too.
halo behind him, isn't
Yeah.
it?
No.
It's gonna be great. I like the way it illuminates the couch when it's on back there. It's pretty impressive.
That is nice.
Yeah. You'll all be illuminated by the couch. Yes, indeed. What is happening?
Ouch. Illumination.
Yes.
What's difficult, though, is with the couch back there and your 13-inch black and white TV over there. It's going to be hard to see.
We shall call it the lamp of prodigious illumination. That is what it shall be.
I expect notation on it in Sharpie next time.
Excellent. Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, I should tell these gentlemen to shut up so we can get on with the show.
Let's do
Get
it.
on with it.
All right. That's a good break.
It's clear.
I'm
Too long.
trying to help
Zen.
Joe for edit.
Zen.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I suppose we owe you an explanation.
About a great many things.
Yes.
Are we doing that now after, what, 50 podcasts?
Yeah, that was the explanation.
Yeah. Well, here the fact is, I mean, the first episode, the beautiful kickoff episode, we recorded from the Minneapolis Public Library. That was interesting.
It was.
We have only slightly less echo here than we had there, and that is because we are using these directional microphones. However, we've changed up our gear, we've changed up the way that we approach recording, we've changed our location, we've changed our internet provider, we've changed hardware, you name it. So that's why there haven't been any episodes of Breezy's story coming out, which is a little bit troublesome because I was hoping to kind of keep up with the story and help guide people through at least my version, you know, of how I was interpreting the story, and sometimes that's a good vehicle, you know, by which to help people understand what the exercise is all about.
Right.
But judging by the ever-increasing membership on Discord and the activity...
Prolific textual conversations.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think people are kind of settling in.
Yeah, I think so.
Sort of enjoying it.
I think so. And I think people have
People,
grown
meaning
to appreciate
you.
the open-ended nature of the Season 2 challenge, right?
Well, and that might have been maybe part of some of the struggle at first is because we were pretty locked down on the first season.
Right.
So then we just kind of opened the floodgates and there was,
Yeah.
Look at what everything I can do.
Yeah.
where do I go?
Yeah. We kind of hit both ends of that extreme, right? Where on the one hand we had a very tightly controlled challenge, and then now we've just kind of opened it wide open. And not only are you having to interpret the story, but you're also having to interpret how it's delivered and how it's structured and all that stuff. And we're not doing much in the way of providing with guidance, mainly because we want to see how you all interpret it.
This sounds like college.
Kind of does.
Hopefully a little more fun.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just thinking about hey, we're going to provide you with a little bit of information. We're going to see how you handle it.
Yeah. You throw everybody into the meat grinder and just see, you know, how they come out at the end in terms of GPA,
Shaped
right?
like a bell curve.
Yeah, exactly. Somehow it always works that way.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we talked, I think, in the last episode, the kickoff, about this being sort of like a game of telephone, right? Where we're feeding story into this thing, and then we're going to go, you know, out 6 episodes to the end of the season, and then we're going to have a finale where we kind of see how everybody interpreted the story and where they took it. So that's what this challenge is all about. I think what I like about it personally is how it's just so focused on the narrative itself.
Right.
And creative interpretation of the story. So.
Yeah, and that's really where it's kind of all at this particular season is really creative interpretation.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think that's a good phrase.
Some people might have called it flailing a few weeks ago.
Well, yeah, and that's understandable. I mean, we kind of really didn't give, like you had said, much guidance. We just kind of put you in the deep end and said swim.
Go.
Yeah, yeah. There was like, whoa, when is it a different character? Is this, you know, is this character the same character as the other one? And we were just kind of like, yes!
Yes! Well, and in part, that's, you know, kind of part of my writing style, insofar as, you know, a short story might be. And kind of at the last minute, we decided to make this short story into a thing. So, you know, kind of morphing it into a script was worked for the most part, but it was a little difficult, little trial and error, you know, getting there. But I think this next episode was a lot smoother and made a lot more sense, at least for all of us here.
Yeah.
And what was expected, because honestly, from us recording, it was a little bit what?
Yeah.
But you know, when I'm writing this stuff, I have a certain thing in my head which is really generally abstract. So I apologize for that. Welcome to my space. But I kind of like the idea of being ambiguous and you need to figure it out as you go. I know that's just kind of stuff I like. It's why I like Legion right now.
Oh yeah.
If anyone's watching the Legion episodes, those are funky, trippy episodes, and half the fun is trying to figure out what in the hell exactly is going on.
Yeah.
I mean, when the whole premise is you're inside, I mean, what is it like to be inside of a mental state that's constantly in flux?
Oh. I haven't seen it, so
It's really interesting.
Good.
I understand the premise, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's really interesting, but that's the kind of stuff I like, so that might explain a little bit of the abstract nature of this particular story and how it's working.
Can I ask a question about your writing approach? Do you tend to write more dialogue first, or do you write narrative and exposition first? Does it just sort of flow out?
It just kind of, I generally find that I start more with a narrative exposition type of getting the ball rolling, and then I add the narrative as it makes sense to do so. Or not the narrative, but the dialogue pieces.
Because I like the set pieces. You're very clear about setting context after you've had a chance to probably go back through and rework who's where and when, but it's nice it sets you in a place pretty deliberately, and then people start talking around that place, and I like it. I just didn't know whether or not you liked to set that.
Yeah, generally, I start out kind of with that place, if you will, and then I build the dialogue within it.
Okay.
So I don't really approach it from I'm going to do this and this and this, but that just seems to be how it works.
Well, and I think that is a function of your narrative style, you know. So, you know, during the course of your adventure into Skyrim and the growth of this podcast, you started writing, and you know you started doing some writing, journal entries in first person, which transformed into more like traditional narrative. And so your approach to this story was kind of traditional narrative, like a novel style of writing, you know, kind of, right?
Yeah, kind
of. Whereas I think when I'm writing, the writing that I've done for my YouTube series, I tend to write dialogue first, and mostly what I'm writing is dialogue.
Right.
Sometimes I write some things that are, you know, inner monologues and stuff like that, but I write in the style that would be more interpreted as a screenplay. I think that would be a novel.
Well, and that makes sense, because when you got into doing that in that mode, that was really the focus of it. That was the reason for your writing, was that dialogue, that screenplay.
Yeah.
And it comes through in a lot of those cinematic pieces where they're part of.
Yeah, and so there are some challenges, right? If you're used to writing in a narrative style and you start that way, and then suddenly you're presented with a challenge like this, where we want to present some of it as dialogue. Now you're taking what you'd written previously and you're adapting it, or whatever.
Right.
I mean that's why they have you know, writers who their whole specialty is, you know, taking popular novels and trying to convert them into usable screenplays for movies and things like that, right? There are people who are very good at that, and that's a specific kind of, I think, a specific, unique talent, I guess.
Right. Well, yeah.
To do that.
I mean,
So I can imagine the challenge you had with episode 1.
If you think about it from that perspective, yeah, that would be a really difficult task if you're not in that mindset to take a book and make it into a play, because that's just not how books are written.
There's an awful lot you have to remove, and retell,
and
words.
Because when you're writing, you can build that whole atmosphere into what you're writing. In a screenplay, it doesn't work quite as smoothly as that, you know. Especially if you're in actual theater, then you have, you know, your sets and you have your interaction with the physical.
But then you don't have to describe it, right? You can
it's part of it. It's part of it.
On a busy city street. And
Right.
That's all you have to
Yeah.
do. Whereas when you write the narrative, you have to write what all that really is.
You have to present that in a way that your reader can hopefully visualize it in the way you think of it. But even then, as we all know, everyone interprets the same thing.
Slightly different. So.
They see it different. They hear a character differently.
So I wonder if when people are listening to the pieces of the story, right, for this one, for Act 2, whether the interpretation of what people are seeing in their head matches where people were at the fire in the first episode and where they'll be here in the second act. You know, because I think that if anyone didn't make it to that sort of campsite, it would have been a little bit difficult. You know, what is that? Why am I hearing fire crackling?
Right.
You know, until the narrative starts. And things
Or you know, you can hear the fire, so you just kind of envision that fire in your own way. Maybe it's in an inn. Maybe it's out in a completely different area. I mean, we were fairly specific where we wanted that to be, but if we were not, if you're just reading the story, which eventually I will put out the actual text version at some point. I'll rework it so it's more fluid as a story, but
book.
if you're just doing it, without that precursor that we kind of set forth, who knows? We could have people way up north and way down south and everywhere in between. So
I think part of what makes
kind
this
of the fun.
experience unique, though, is the idea that we're always bridging this gap between the stuff that's visual and the stuff that's not. Like when I describe my stories, for example, to someone who's never seen it before, I always say, imagine an audiobook with images, with video. That's what we're trying to convey here in a way, in a similar fashion, I guess. So when you think about what you're discussing, right, being able to place the player at exactly a particular spot. What I love about this is that by doing that, we're giving everybody this interesting frame of reference. So when we talk about that, we say, remember where you started. Everybody's got this picture in their head. Everybody's got the same picture because they were all in the same spot.
Right.
But as they move further into the story and we start bringing up things like, other locations, Old Roldan, for example.
Right.
People have different interpretations of that. We all know what it looks like, but we may have come to it by a different way or encountered different characters there, things like that.
Right.
That's where we start to get that, I think, this kind of, this nice transition from what's common to what's individual.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting kind of, we all have the same picture book to work with, but it's not necessarily a choose your own ending as much as it is choose your own version.
Yeah.
It's like this empty. It's like the empty bubble. We all have the same picture book, and it all has the big empty bubble, and you just put your own words in.
Yeah.
And we just help you out with a couple key points.
Yeah.
So it's like Mad Libs.
Kind of like Mad Libs, but a little more cerebral, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
maybe we should just quickly remind people what this episode is all about, just in terms of whether or not it's where it resides in terms of being a benchmark in the story. We didn't really have any requirements around this one, right?
No. So just to kind of recap, we have 5 acts, one for each episode, with the 6th episode of our season kind of wrapping up and highlighting everyone's experience. So effectively, we have 5 episodes dedicated to the story. So we are asking that everyone that's trying to tag along with us, that acts 1, 3, and 5, they incorporate into their play somehow.
Okay.
Either if you've already been to areas or characters that have been highlighted for that act, how do you kind of reevaluate their importance, or how you bring them into your story, or how are you going to incorporate that part into your play. So that's where those 3 out of the 5. Now, acts 2 and 4, we're on number 2 now, are more just story elements. They're just kind of for fun. You can use them if you'd like, or you can just enjoy it for what it is. So there's really nothing about this particular story element that's coming up that will, that we're going to ask you to, envelop into how you're playing your game.
So there's no specific requirement. We're not saying go to this place,
No,
talk to this
no.
person, nothing like that.
No,
We're just offering up story.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring in some elements that everyone who knows the game
Makes sense.
will be familiar with, but we don't expect that you're gonna wrap that in unless you really want to.
Won't necessarily adjust the direction of their gameplay.
No, it's sheerly just for entertainment, really.
And it's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's awesome.
Matt, if you alt-tab, I've got another window with the chat on it that would be bigger if that helps to read it.
Yep. Well, I
Okay.
just didn't want
So
to be
what-
adjusting stuff.
What I try to do in each of these story elements is I try to pull in part of the game, whether it's a character or a place or a little bit of both, so that it has a familiarity about it. But then I kind of am trying to envelop it into something that fills in the gaps that we won't experience, such as the old sage and the story that he's trying to portray. I mean, I'll bring in elements of it, but I'm kind of making everything up around it.
Yeah, and this is exactly what I like about this is this is exactly what we always talk about doing in Skyrim, right? Where we take the things that are presented to us and then we play around in the spaces in between that are undefined.
Right.
So Joe is incorporating characters that you may be familiar with either through lore or through game experiences, but he is writing things of his own that are gluing these things together in a completely original way. And this is a game that, because of its structure, would allow you to do this 1,000 times over.
Oh yeah, and the way the Elder Scrolls lore is structured, with especially when you add the element of time breaks in, which somehow in an odd sort of way make contradictory lore plausible.
Yeah.
So, but with all the lore that this game offers, this universe, this world offers, there's a lot of stuff that you can latch onto and fill in and just make up a small little detail and run with it forever. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what I'm attempting to do, is take these little known these known pieces and just wrap up some extraneous made up stuff. That's just kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, that's the point. Now we're going to add an extra layer of creativity on top of that by seeing how everybody interprets what you've written differently.
Right.
And I think that's what's really
Well,
cool
that's the
about
beauty
this.
of it. I mean, I'm not right any more than I'm wrong. So it's just
It's an incredible layer cake of storytelling.
everybody like a parfait.
Yeah.
Everybody
likes the parfait. That's what we say.
Nobody like onion.
Only
All right. So just to be clear, everybody, the story that you're going to hear then that is associated with episode 2 is just a bit of story to enhance what you're already experiencing.
Right.
There aren't any requirements or anything like that. However, we have already stated that is going to be different for episode 3. There is going to be a requirement.
There's
for
going to be an
episode 3.
element that we want to incorporate.
And so, Joe, how do you think that's going to work? Do we, at that point, are we telling them in advance to go someplace and then experience the story, or will they be guided to a location through the story itself? What are your thoughts on that? Or have you thought about that?
I honestly haven't thought about it yet.
Joe hasn't thought about it, honestly.
I think there's pros and cons of either approach.
Right.
Over the next couple weeks, I'm going to be working on that piece. So, come podcast time, we can kick that off, and then you can kind of get the full story with the following element. But
might be kind of difficult depending on where people are coming from to guide them right to it, unless you have a starting point for where they need to go. Right, then it turns into sort of a gray line tour, sort of on your left you'll see a beautiful little pond.
Well,
Infested by slaughterfish.
Skyrim duck tour.
you know, if we take our first act as an example, our introductory started them in a location, but the first act didn't really do anything other than imply another location.
Mm-hmm.
So we had our starting point, but we really didn't say anything more about that until that first piece came out.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of envision subsequent pieces of story coming out like that. So you'll find out what part you should integrate when that's released.
When
And
the
then you'll
story-
have that. You'll have the 2 weeks until our next podcast to
Right.
kind of see how you can build that in, either if you've already been there or if you have not.
Yeah, that I think that makes the most sense for a lot of.
So it's kind of
reasons.
a
Yeah.
little surprise when that story element comes out. And now I'm not going to assume that I need to baby step everyone through it, but I'm going to assume that how I create this part will be obvious enough that you'll all know
Sure.
what you need to do. And that's kind of part of the fun, interpreting
Yeah.
that piece. But it'll be, I'll try to build it out in such a way that it makes sense, and you should be able to pick out what the primary focus of the story piece is.
And I think that would just make sense too.
With the
because-
first one, I personally thought that Old Hurldan was fairly obvious as the focal point.
Well, and to be fair as well, we gave people 2 or 3 weeks notice.
Yeah.
Told them exactly where we wanted them to be at the start, right?
Right.
Now that we're in the stream of things, it makes more sense that locations and story bits might be revealed through the story itself, and they internalize that how they want to. They
Right.
travel there when and how they want to.
Well,
they,
yeah, right,
all
right.
that, right?
I mean, the starting point was important just so everyone had a common reference. When we started with the actual story element, we didn't start that until we had it ready and released it with the podcast. So
Yeah.
I don't expect that we will change how we do that.
Yeah. Well, I think that sounds good. I like that idea, right?
So you listen to the story, you digest it a little bit. How does it fit? How can it fit? And just roll with it.
I think it also means that we're leaving more open to interpretation, which means people
Right.
can go further afield.
Well, and the beauty is,
Yeah.
nothing's wrong.
Well, and part of it is that it isn't about having other people play Joe's game or
No,
Steve's
you're
game.
not playing my
It's
game.
It's about introducing just another part of the story. Maybe
Right,
it
right,
feels like
right.
a side quest to you. Maybe it feels like the quest to you.
Right. So it's just another element to enhance your play.
Yep. I think that's fantastic.
Easy
And
as
we
that.
and we get to record more.
Yeah,
which
yeah,
all-
we do.
Which is awesome. And Joe gets to edit more.
Uh-huh.
And then Joe gets to send us his edits again because Matt didn't read the right version of the script. Didn't have
No,
the right
no.
names in it. And the new names, not the right names.
Well, that's actually interesting that you mentioned that, because I think that's a good segue into another discussion that I think is kind of interesting. So I think what we're going to do here, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a really quick break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss a little bit about how episode 2 was created. We'll get into that in a bit more detail, and we are going to take questions from the chat room if you've got them, and just see where that leads us in our conversation. So we will be back in just a moment.
And as always, just to make it a little bit easier on us, if you preface it with all caps question, it just makes sure that we won't skip it. We'll look for other questions, but it's a lot easier if we can see that big old highlight.
And yes, to be fair, also, it does not have to be a question if it's something.
It could be a comment
It
or
could be a comment or a discussion point as well.
a talking point.
Preface it with question in all caps so we can pick it out in chat.
Yep.
All right.
All right, we'll be right back. All right, let's refill the beverages, whatever we got to do.
And what do we got?
Do we mute
No,
music? Play?
yeah.
Just
We're
let it rip?
Let her rip. Yep, it's.
Let her rip.
We're freestyling tonight.
Gail loves the new studio setup. We love you too, Gail.
Alright.
I didn't know how much closer I could pull that. I didn't know how you have it connected. Is it wired?
No,
Did you get a router?
no router. This is wired, but I got the extra long purple cable that goes all the way around the whole room.
So how is this just recording? This is the only one connected?
No, this is recording from the directional microphones,
Yep.
and then that's all coming in here. So they're hearing us only through the Eddy.
Right, but my question, this machine is not connected to the interwebs right now.
Correct.
Just this one.
Yep.
Okay.
Just this one.
So don't mess it up or launch Netflix.
Correct.
Oh yes, the floors are lovely.
Crunchy floors.
Did you hear my comment about walking around on the wooden floors with your cement shoes?
Yeah.
Shut up, man.
Hey, I just wanted to let you know I was listening. Why is that on the floor?
What?
That.
Because otherwise the lights won't work.
Really? I was wondering why it wasn't like underneath the bit of the
I
carpet.
think it was an afterthought to plug the music in.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, all that thing is doing right now is serving music, and that's it.
It's awesome listening to the music while you're driving because there's so much anticipation that any minute now they're going to start talking. Like usually when I'm traveling and everything, if you guys are going to start at 6 o'clock, like you usually do, I'm on at like 5:59. I was listening for like 5 minutes before, getting a wide variety of musical selections. Right. Well, I don't know. It's right up there with Elmer's glue, I think. Don't you think? I mean, come on, lead paint.
Let's get some glue. Hello, Ramones. Anyone who might know?
I don't like how you pour beer. It's weird.
How is that weird?
I was just looking for something to pick on you. I do like how you did that.
I blow a pretty
This
good
is
bottle.
so different. I mean, the fact that we've got room to walk around and not trip over each other all the time.
And the fact that it sounds like we're in a cavern. But
Well, on that it does.
What's wrong? The floor is squeaky.
Jesus. You're so weird, man.
I'm sorry.
Look, now we're back and they're asking questions. That's great. Actually, when you roll around on the floor, it makes even more noise.
Yeah.
Really? Ooh.
I only know that because apparently someone forgot to turn off the broadcast mics the other night.
He rolling around. Weird.
I like the adjustable lamp over the head, though. That's nice.
Why are you rolling down there? There is no shiny. What the point of going down there? All right.
How would we like to do this? Would we like to do questions first? Or would we like
No.
to do production discussion
Let's
first?
do
'Cause we
production.
have some questions.
Well, let's do some production
We
discussion
need more questions.
and it may
Discussion.
generate some additional questions.
All of you people who think you don't have questions, you have
Percussion
yet to
discussion.
keep up with Anne, who has plenty of excellent questions. Thank you, Anne.
Percussive
Yeah.
discussion.
The percus-
Yes.
Maybe.
Outtake.
I was going to get into a little bit of, sort of inflationary language there, right?
You know, there are times where I just don't have enough end music for all
For
the
all the
outtakes.
outtakes. I do think that we need a little jingle for the outtakes, though. So,
Yeah. Well, we make it work somehow. I don't know how. It's a freaking sausage factory for sure.
but one day maybe we'll release,
Not fest.
Not
Or
fast.
party.
Well, it is actually.
Oh, I can't
Yeah,
kind of
that
answer
too,
that.
yeah, sadly.
Yes.
We should just release a bloopers episode, though.
I don't know if I've got all of it left. Depends how much I keep.
Yeah.
I mean, overall, I can only store so much.
That's true.
Joe's a keeper.
True dad. All right, so percussion.
Joseph.
Percussion.
Yeah.
Discussion. Blah, 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 blah.
Do you want me to create a nice, neat segue into this, or?
If you would, that'd be great.
Okay. That's not neat.
Don't.
Jesus Christ!
It's like the bull moose.
Okay.
Outtakes.
All right, so and segue.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to talk a little bit this evening about production of the episodes, the story that you're going to hear someday. We, because we don't know how long it's going to take us to produce these episodes. Sometimes
2 days.
we can never tell. 2 days.
2 days.
Okay, so 2 days plus one other day is like 3 days.
Somewhere on there.
Yeah,
Now, keep in mind, I never said what planet.
this is advanced.
Oh, so it might be like Saturn days.
Could be.
Or more likely with Joe, it'll be like Endor. It'll be calculated based on Tatooine or something.
Well, at least it won't be Alderaan, because then we'd never get it.
It's kind of tough to use Alderaan days nowadays.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about how we put that together. The other thing that we're going to do is just give some general updates about things, various plugs, let you know what's going on with Couch Warrior TV, and getting back into the swing of things with both live streams and recorded videos. We are monitoring questions in chat, and we will address those as well. So if there are things that come up in the course of our discussion that you want to ask about, feel free to do that, and we will respond to them within reason. All right, shall we?
Yes.
All right. So in the kickoff, we talked a little bit about how we went about producing episode 1 of the story.
Yep.
And honestly, if we were to characterize episode 2 in simplest terms, we'd probably say more of the same.
Pretty much.
Kinda.
Pretty much.
A
Yeah.
wide variety of equipment, wide variety of locations, wide variety of re-recordings.
Yeah. Well, it's
Pretty much.
it's an odd. It's kind of an odd process because we're all recording our pieces separately in different environments on different equipment, and then Joe is trying to pull those separate tracks together into a single track, which gets passed around for listening and then for sound design.
Yep.
So.
Are you using the Yeti when you're recording?
Yes, it's the only option I have, unless you want me to go through the laptop built
And you're
in.
using this, right?
Yeah.
I'm using the Yeti. Stuart's using his new device here. Well, that wasn't loud.
And Matt is using his Tribbles.
Tribble.
My Tribble. Yeah, exactly.
Trouble with tribbles.
But it's kind of nice to be able to see all the stuff that everyone uses. The fact that Joe
that's true.
takes all these pieces and makes it sound really.
So
pretty
basically, what you have there, Matt, with the tribble and the Don hat. What's
good.
his
It is
name?
like a
Don King.
Yeah, Don King hat. So it's yours is essentially an older version of what Stuart is using.
Yes, absolutely. So this was designed to take a couple of XLR inputs, and that's fine. But now when I'm recording in my incredibly expensive recording studio, which it really is.
Well, actually, I was going to say that's true.
Incredibly expensive. I just use this, and I just put a little pop filter in front of it and record.
And mobile.
It is. Well, it is the most expensive mobile recording studio.
Available to us.
Probably.
Right.
Because there's nothing like having a $35,000 mobile recording studio.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Well,
With
Matt,
reclining seats and everything.
for those of you who
Nice.
are audio listeners, right? Matt is recording. What kind of microphone do you use, Matt?
I use a Shure SM7B.
A Shure SM7B, and then he is using a Zoom H4n digital audio recorder. So you're plugging your XLR microphone directly into this, and then are you just recording on battery power?
When I'm using the Shure, when I'm recording in the Odyssey, I just go right into here, and then I actually do a little post processing without using the Shure mic, because then I don't have to bring the Shure mic up out of the office. So what you get is right out of here.
Nice.
Really?
Yeah. So
Well, it's amazing that it really.
it's only because of the pipes, really. No, I'm kidding. It's
No,
because
they're-
of the post processing.
If I gave
Sounds
a
great.
kind of a gradient, your recordings are the clearest and kind of the most pure. Stuart's is very close second. Mine is way distant third. So
But
Well,
it is different environments, though,
yeah.
right? I mean,
what's
literally.
the environment,
Yeah.
the equipment? It's
This
a
is
lot
an
of
outstanding
factors.
microphone, though. When you look at the Yeti mics, they're fantastic. I think the only advantage
No,
that I
they-
have is closing myself in a car in a garage. So,
The-
I mean,
Yeah.
The thing with a lot of people use them, so there's got to be a little merit there. So
Oh, there is, absolutely. So, in Matt's particular situation, just environmentally speaking, he's recording inside a car, which is really great for sound damping,
It really
right?
is.
And so that's where you're getting that clean sound. Now, the disadvantage of recording that way is that you're recording in a car in a garage,
yeah, you don't have much room to move.
and if it's 1,000,000 degrees, that
It was
sucks
only
too.
101 outside when we recorded this last one. It was
Perfect.
It was painfully sweaty. That's
well,
all.
I didn't hear any of that.
Yeah.
That's good because
I
I
did-
felt like the dripping sweat was.
I didn't hear any of the heat. That didn't come through at all.
Yeah, for sure.
The sound is totally different when you have the doors open.
Oh,
or the
yeah.
windows down versus completely buttoned up.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
when we bought that car, we actually had more soundproofing put in the doors
Oh, you did.
because we travel a lot. We
Oh,
wanted to try
yeah.
to attenuate as much as we could. So you
Right.
probably don't notice it as much unless you've driven both, one with and one without the sound
Makes sense.
in it. But
Sure.
I love how sort of flat it is when I'm recording in there.
Oh, it is.
Something
It
a
is.
little
It
bit
is.
more lively.
I
record
went
in
into
the front.
ours just out of curiosity if it was an option that I wanted to pursue, and Atmospherically, yeah, it's the best thing I could probably figure out for compared to the house, but I just don't have I don't have the fortitude to deal with the suffocation and the heat.
Yeah.
And,
I'll sit
plus,
in
if I do it, I need to bring in my laptop because that's where everything is.
Oh, yeah.
And as soon as that hits there, that fan's going to spin up and it's just going to totally
Like a day at the races.
annihilate any reason why I'm in that environment.
You can't lay it with the screen flat on the window, on the windshield.
Maybe.
Don't turn on the wipers. Whack!
Damn it.
Because
So
I
yeah,
usually sit in the back seat because then that gives me a little bit more
Right.
above.
Right.
Recorded in the front seat, you get a lot of reflection off the
Window.
and stuff. You can pack it with pillows, do whatever, but in the van it's easy. Just slide the seats forward, and you got lots of room.
Right.
So
Well, I like talking about like the technical aspects of how we're doing what we're doing. We don't really talk about it that much. We've had people ask us questions in the past about what we use for gear for various things, and we don't really talk about it that much.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you got going on,
environment
Stu?
is a factor, right? And so Matt's got nice dead sound because he's recording in the car. I'm recording on this device here, which is also a Zoom, but it's the H6.
Well, you have a leveling bubble on there and everything.
which you may not be able to see because of the
Because
Mac
of
that's
the
in the way, but
Yeah, and then I'm coming out of the H6 using XLR, and I'm using one of these microphones, the same microphones we use for our podcast. This is also the microphone I use for Couch Warrior TV for any of the sound that I record there, all that voice work.
Rodecaster.
It's a Rode Procaster XLR microphone. And I'm recording, the first two episodes I recorded in an office that had, lots of windows in it and bare walls and stuff like that. So I got a livelier sound.
Mm-hmm.
And that is going to be kind of the deal with me going forward because I'm going to be recording in my apartment now, and I've got a plan for using my sound dampening blankets to kind of deaden the sound a little bit. But this is an old building with plaster and lath walls,
a lot of
hardwood
surfaces.
floors, lots of windows. I mean, I'm going to get a lot of reflected sound no matter what I do.
It would be really
So-
hard for you to get your car in here.
It would suck, and it would be really weird to sit out on the street.
Especially.
Street parking. Yeah. There's this guy sitting in his car out front.
How many times
Talking
do people
screen.
call the police on you?
Sir, will you roll down the window, please, sir?
Are you podcasting again?
Yeah. I'm just fucking recording it out. Get out of here. No,
Sir, could I see your ID?
I'm not from around here. Here's my green card.
Your address doesn't say where you live.
Yeah.
It
So.
just says a letter. What?
So what we end up with is we've got Matt with a really kind of dead sound, me with kind of a medium, more lively room sound, and then Joe, which is the other end of the extreme because of both environment and equipment, right?
Right. So I have a corner in the house I live in that we have a corner room that's just kind of a spare room. My oldest used to be his room. He's kind of moved on. So, but it's still a lot of hard drywall. I mean, it's got carpet at least, but I mean, it's still a pretty, I don't know, hard surfaced room.
Lively.
Lively. Just on the other side of the wall is our utility room. So during the winter, the furnace kicks on to heat the house. During the summer, the furnace kicks on to circulate the air conditioner.
Yeah.
So I've got some kind of background noise almost always going on. The bonus of it is at least it's consistent and it's constant. So if I give myself a period of time to capture that sound, I can use Audacity to scrub it out. Not perfectly. It's just kind of the way so that will eventually affect my general voice recording because it's taking all that sound, which some of that actually might be my sound. So, it's going to affect the overall quality. But I mean, I am using this Yeti mic, Yeti Blue. I don't know exactly what version, but I don't think they've changed a great deal over the years. So it's
Good
just
quality mic.
it's a USB. It's pretty straightforward. It's got a gain and then kind of directional.
Yeah.
And that's about it. It's about straightforward as you can hope for.
The main difference here too is that the microphone that we use when we're podcasting right now, these are directional microphones. The Blue Yeti is actually a condenser microphone, which a condenser microphone is the type of microphone you'd probably want to use if you were recording an instrument. You know, if you were sitting in a room playing a guitar, for example, you probably want to use a condenser microphone, right? And so, by default, the microphone he's using is going to pick up the room noise that these are. Even when it's set to cardioid, like it is when he's recording, it's still going to have a much wider tone.
So it's gonna pick up the sound reflection off the walls. It's gonna pick up the ambient noise through the walls of the furnace of the air conditioner. It's gonna pick up anything my son right above me might be doing, just indiscriminately. Honestly, it's kind of funny though, because this is the same setup that I use when I record my series, my Lost in Time series. And when I'm recording that, I'll hear all this crap going on. I'm like, geez, dude, what are you doing up there? And then I'll listen back to it and I'm like, huh. All right, well, I don't hear a whole lot of that going on.
But you do have the ability to adjust essentially the gain and the gauge on this mic a little bit. So.
Yeah, I do. I usually have to set the gain just a little bit high just for my tone, my voice, so it'll pick it up a little better, but that just means it's going to pick up a lot more. So
yeah.
And I think one of the biggest challenges that people have in picking the right kind of equipment is how much are you investing in trying to do it? The great thing about most of the modern USB mics is that you can get a great sound out of it. You might have a different level of control when you go to an XLR mic because you can start running through additional gear, like through our sound board or even through the Zoom here. To get much better control. And now I don't have that level of control with this, even than you have here, because what you record, it's either more mic sensitivity or less, and that's so you actually have more control on your Yeti than I have.
Yeah, I can tweak this. I can also I do use Audacity to record too, from a software perspective, which also allows me to adjust some of the mic sensitivity in Audacity from a software perspective. It's not going to be like any of the Adobe products or the more sophisticated sound recording products, software products, but
Pro Tools and whatnot.
it's free.
And
I can't complain, and it does work really well. Audacity is what I use to produce and edit everything that we put out. For this season, I kind of put all the voices together, and I do send it off to Stuart to do the final sound design with all of the background elements and that kind of stuff. He just has access to more effects than I do, so it makes more sense for him to do that. But everything else that I touch is all through Audacity. So it's all through this free product that has really some pretty good capabilities.
It does. Well, millions of people use it the world over.
I mean, is that what you started with?
Yeah.
So
I did all of my originally. I did all my sound work in Audacity.
So I mean, it will do the job for you if that's what you're looking for now.
I started mine with Windows Sound Recorder.
Oh, there you go.
It's horrible.
Well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. We're basically taking these kind of these three different
very
levels
distinct
of
recording
of audio. And then Joe is mashing them together and kind of making all the dialogue match up, and he's producing that, and basically as a file, and sending that to me, and then I'm giving it a listen and adding in music and sound effects and all that kind of stuff, and producing the final version. And then when I go through it and kind of listen to the audio, if there's something I can do to smooth something out or, something like that, I will.
Right.
But generally speaking, I don't really have to touch it that much. I feel like even though there is a distinct difference in the way that our voices sound because of our recording gear, after the effects and the music are added in,
Kind of smooths it out.
it does. The overall feel of it is pretty good.
Well,
that's my experience anyway.
Additionally, we try to separate, the types of characters we're doing, so it's okay if they're a little more distinct because they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
So,
There's a nice advantage though when you listen too. Like when I was listening on the way down, when you guys were getting started with the podcast, as I was weaving through traffic, everything had a nice sort of level sound to it. When I was listening to the sample that you sent with the various edit sort of versions of it, I was listening to it over my phone and then plugged in my headphones to listen to it again. And then when I got one of the sound design version from Stu, same thing. So you can hear the evolution.
Hear the progression.
But if you're listening to it over computer speakers, you would probably not notice it as much as if you're pumping
Well,
it right
and that makes a huge difference on what you're actually listening to. I mean, I just finished up. Actually, as we were getting set up, I just finished rendering out the next episode of Lost in Time. And when I recorded that, I don't know what went on, but it just sounded really tinny to me. So I adjusted a little bit, but the difference between how it sounds with just earbuds versus a full headset is miles of difference. In the earphones, it sounded like it lost all its bass. It just sounded really treble, really tinny. Without doing a whole lot, when I put on the headset, all that bass came back, and it just sounds a world different. So, I mean, I'm not even really an audiophile, but what you're listening with makes a world of difference.
And what you're using also for audio feedback when you're going through the production process is such a huge thing, I think.
Oh, it totally is.
Because you can make some very bad decisions when you're doing sound design if you're listening to your own work back through on bad headphones. Right? You can make some.
You're
really
compensating
bad
for the equipment,
right?
And
I've produced stuff when I was using earbuds that I thought sounded terrific during production, but sounded to me like horse shit when I was done. Right? Because you're not hearing a true sound.
Right.
So
it's kind of a balancing act of trying to put together something that is going to be as broad-reaching and sound good still. Because there's a lot of people that use earbuds.
And you've got to account for the fact that
there's a lot of people that don't.
On dollar store earbuds, right?
And there's folks that just listen through their TV if they're streaming it, or their computer, or there's so many devices that you can't really compensate for all of them, but you can at least try to get a general.
Anybody who's listening on like $20,000 Mylar speakers can let us know how we sound.
And then they can come and sponsor us.
That would be great.
That'd be great.
We can meet their needs more effectively.
We'll have a special Mylar speaker version.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is everything you never wanted to know about production. It is kind of an interesting process. We've enjoyed it. If we could, we would love to be all in the same room and record it all at once. But sometimes it's just not practical because, sometimes we can't get together at the right times, or it would also require that Joe be, a chapter or two ahead on everything that we produce, and that's not always possible. So we've tried to come up with an interesting process we think will allow us to get the best stories out we can.
And so far it's working.
Flexibility.
So far it's working.
Without buying 3 cents of all the gear.
I mean,
correct.
It's a balancing act. So we can all split it up, and we can have a little bit different sounding end result, or we can, but we're free to do it whenever we have time. Or we can all be in the same room and hope that we can all do it at the same time. And hope that I can have something prepared at the same time.
You can't do it while you're watching.
That would be, well, it's not as bad as you think. Anyway.
So there you have it. Yes, the next episode will be coming out soon. You'll probably get it, I don't know, before the end of the week. So
That's what we're shooting for.
We'll see what direction that takes you. I think that leads us into a few announcements. There's a few things that are worth mentioning. First of all, Couch Warrior TV is alive and kicking.
It's alive!
Yes. We believe. And so here's the plan going forward. I'm bringing back Tuesdays, and honestly, Tuesdays may be the only day during the week that I will have to record and do live streams. So Tuesdays are going to be a priority for Couch Warrior TV going forward, and my objective is to have a live stream every Tuesday night. I want that to be something that you can count on. I don't know if it's going to begin this week or not. It depends on how much luck I have dealing with my setup. I'm going to try to set aside some time tomorrow to just figure out how I can, successfully stream given my current setup. If it doesn't work out for tomorrow night, it will certainly begin next week. So you can look for Tuesdays coming back. And the way that's going to work is Tuesdays are going to resume with Unbound. So we'll be picking up Breezy's story where we left off, and then I'm going to be playing some big time catch up. I got to catch up with you guys. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And then the idea is I will do a Tuesday night live stream, and then I will take that footage, and then sometime over the course of the week or into the weekend, that will all be cut up into episodes and released as videos for people who cannot participate or attend the live stream, right? So that way you will get, Unbound videos every time we do a new season challenge. You'll get continuous videos, and I'll be able to make the most of the one night a week that I'm probably going to have to actually do this stuff. So that is the plan going forward. So mark your calendars. Tuesdays probably going to be starting at 6 p.m. every Tuesday night, a live stream, and then that content will be siphoned off and made into videos.
And that'd be 6 p.m. Central Time.
Yep, 6 p.m. Central Time, Minneapolis time. And I think I'm excited to have Breezy come back and to jump back into that thing. The good news is we're only in episode 2 here. I've got a little bit of catching up to do, unfortunately, but I think I can do it. So we're going to tackle that. The other thing, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, kind of with our delay here, it just feels like it's been longer, but it really hasn't. We're really only on the second episode of the season, so.
Right. Yeah, it really hasn't been that long.
For those of you who have had, life creep up on you and have not been able to do as much as you'd like, you're really not as far behind as you might feel. And for those of you who feel like you're way too far ahead, game on.
Yeah, they're kind of, with this challenge, there really is no too far ahead, I don't think.
Not really.
No.
So it just feels like it because we kind of got out of sync there for a little bit for a variety of reasons, but we really are only just beginning and getting into it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So look for more to come. I'm going to try to get some announcements out shortly about some of the things that are going on. I'll probably do a channel update. The other thing that I want to mention is that Dirty Weasel and Couch Warrior TV are going to be doing a cooperative live stream. We will be doing live commentary of the Bethesda E3 showcase. This is coming Sunday night. I think it's at 8 p.m.
I'm really hoping it's going to be more than a bobblehead.
Yeah, it'll be more than a bobblehead.
Be 2 of them.
It better be more than a fucking bobblehead, I'll tell you that.
Come on, Bethesda, give us more than a bobblehead.
Jeez. They basically, put big overlays over 3 towers in downtown LA or whatever it was. I saw something like that. I think it was LA. There better be something going on. The interesting thing about Bethesda is I feel like nobody ever knows what the hell they're gonna do. Like, I just remember being dumbfounded at last year's showcase. I remember when it was over, I was like, what? It's over? It was like it was as if somebody recorded an entire showcase, cut it in half, and then just gave me the first half. That's what it felt like. Like it was just like this abrupt ending, and then it was like, see ya!
Well,
and
they
off they
do
went.
is press play on the second half.
And then the house lights came up, and no one was moving. Like, waiting.
They're waiting for the credit scene.
Yeah, they're waiting for the post-credit scene. So we're told that they have a big showcase this year. We've already heard some of the things that are going to be released, in part because they released trailers, and in part because Walmart Canada fucked up and leaked a bunch of stuff. Yeah, they leaked a bunch of stuff, and then Bethesda made kind of a preemptive strike, and came out and Bethesda, I think, tried to nip it in the bud, right? So Walmart Canada did this leak accidentally, and then Bethesda immediately jumped on it and released a trailer, for one of those games. Like, yes, fine, it's real.
And how much do you think
stuff
Walmart
like
Canada is going to have to pay for letting the cat out of the bag?
Probably nothing.
I wonder what the contract says.
I don't know. Anyway.
So Bethesda's making a profit on this no matter what.
Yep. So join us on Sunday night. It's going to be a lot of fun. Cal and I are going to be streaming together. He's going to be streaming on Twitch, and I'll be streaming on YouTube. So you can take it in either through Couch Warrior TV or Dirty Weasel. But basically, his audio will be coming into my stream, and my audio will be feeding into his stream, and we're going to kind of do this together.
Are either of you doing a restream?
I wasn't planning on using Restream at all.
Okay.
So the idea was that he was going to focus on Twitch and I would focus on YouTube, but then we would co-op together. We're going to do a little testing session tomorrow night just to make sure it freaking works.
To have a little link, one on Twitch and one on YouTube, that says watch the other half of this conversation. Click the link.
Yeah.
Right, and just
yeah.
back and forth.
So my plan is to be actually broadcasting right from that couch back there.
Nice.
From the Couch Warrior couch.
Yeah, the Couch Warrior couch. That is the plan. So look for that. I think that could be a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll get a lot of people in there.
Yeah, that's cool. I do have a Twitch, but I have never done anything with it, so maybe it might be a good time to figure out how to rebroadcast someone's stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, there are ways.
There are ways. People do it. I hear people do it.
And I could take the stream off of your YouTube or your Twitch and put it out on whatever Xbox is using now.
You
Sure.
could.
Sure. Anyway, no, that
Broadcast
sounds
it to all
great,
those
and
handful of
it's got a couple avenues. So
Yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun.
that'll be fun. So
I always
how long do you think
totally
that'll go?
Well,
I don't know the general.
the E3 showcase for Bethesda, they say it's going to be an hour and a half long.
Okay.
And then we're going to do a little bit of a pregame.
Okay,
So we're going to do a
okay.
30-minute pregame, and then we'll probably do something post as
So
well.
you're looking at anywhere from 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah, probably. I would say 2 to 3 hours. Yeah,
8 hour.
2 to 3 hours.
Oh.
2 to 3 hours show. Yeah,
It's a tantrum stream.
Marathon.
yeah, 2 to 3
You and
hours.
Cal.
Yeah,
2 hour marathon.
yeah, exactly. It's like it'll be like the Super Bowl where there's like 10 hours of pregame, and then
Oh yeah.
and then you got to watch
45 minutes of game, 3 hours of
for
commercials.
3 hours afterwards, watching everybody hoist the trophy up. I hate that stuff.
Not my thing. Not my
No.
thing.
Anyway, so look for that. Will be more announcements. Cal actually put out a video today, I think, making an official
He
announcement.
did. I haven't watched it yet, but I'll have to spin that up.
Yeah, yeah.
Go watch.
So we got that going on. And also, I just wanted to quickly point out that if you would like to support this obviously extremely professional, well-produced, and highly polished production you see before you here, we do appreciate it.
Production.
We will take your money
something.
if you care to give it.
Or pizza.
Or pizza, yeah.
Or money for pizza.
Or
Money
money
for
for yeah.
pizza.
Don't send us the pizza. That'd just be gross. Send us money and then we'll buy something reasonably
It
fresh.
would be a little interesting if someone actually sent us a pizza and knew where you were.
That'd be kind of
It would
frightening.
be kind of creepy.
Yeah. I'll set up a PO box. You can send it to a PO box. I'll pick it up the day
They're
after.
gonna roll
Oh.
it up and shove it into the PO box.
Do you think maybe you could just have it sent to Shirley's and she'll forward it?
Yeah.
I'm sure she'd have no problem
Yeah,
with that.
Shirley reveals her address. I don't. So send it to Shirley, and she'll forward it to me because I trust her with my address.
Oh, that's so nice of you.
And she would have no problem getting pizzas for Stu.
Yeah. So if a pizza goes to Virginia first, and then comes here after,
I'm gonna need the Incredibles to deliver it.
I know.
Oh, dude, you'd get such a talking to.
I would. Oh, Shirley would be pissed. Do not send
Please
Shirley
don't do
pizzas.
that. Don't do that.
Oh my God. Don't.
Send her love. Send her your best
Not
wishes.
pizzas.
but
She's a
not
nice
pizzas.
lady.
We like
Okay.
Shirley.
Incredible lady.
You can support us on Patreon by going to patreon.charactercrusade.com. We will take donations in any size, up to $1 or more, however much you care to give,
Up
and
to
that
$1.
is $1 or more.
I'm starting it now.
Starting at $1 or more. Are we clear on this?
I'm
$1
just checking.
more?
I'm just listening to the airplane go by. I'm thinking about.
I heard that too. That's a pizza coming in from Virginia right now.
Nice.
Sorry,
All right, let's
That's
make some
fine.
glue.
I figured I'd.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you can support us on Patreon, patreon.charactercrusade.com. Also, share the podcast with friends. If you've got friends who might be interested in what we're doing here, share the podcast with them. Get them to join us in our challenges. Get them to play Skyrim along with the community. That's great. Get into Discord and contribute to the community there. If you've got questions about how the challenges work, have role play questions, stuff like that, feel free to jump into the community and ask questions. It's growing by leaps and bounds, as evidenced by frazzled admins, owners, and moderators over the last couple of weeks. So
Yep.
We're working on it.
we're working on it. We've got a loose plan. The problem, I think, has been just recent in recent weeks. I haven't exactly been asleep at the wheel, I guess, is a matter in a way.
I think you've been down in the engine room.
Yeah, I've kind of stepped away. Yeah, I've been down in the engine room.
Yeah,
That's it.
so-
That's right. Yeah, I just tied a rope on the steering wheel and then went down this direction. That's what I did.
Assuming there isn't an atoll
Yeah.
somewhere over there.
Yeah. So we're kind of
Captain.
careening around, as it were, right now, but things are coming together slowly. So you'll start to see things materialize more. Also, hit us up on social media. Tell us, tell your friends out there in Reddit, or you can also get out there and give us a rating or review on iTunes. That's super helpful. So I'd say now it's time for us to launch into some listener questions. I understand we've got some questions in
We
chat.
have some questions. We do have some folks who are providing character updates. So
Okay.
we'll pass on some of those and get into the meat of the questions.
Questions
So,
and
Yeah,
comments.
in there, if you do have a question,
Yep.
we really do want to answer
Yep.
people's questions.
We'll hit the questions, the talking points, and then if we can hit some of the character stuff, we will.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the pieces that
I'm going to stop this quick and restart the recording, okay? Perfect. Matt's getting ready to barf his words. Here they come. Ready?
Verbal vomit.
Here we go.
we'll give it a minute to settle down.
So,
Yeah. Sorry about
what
that.
were you gonna say, Matt?
We do have some really good questions. Absolutely. We'll start with the questions. Again, we'll get back to character updates perhaps in a few minutes. But one of the things that you mentioned early on, maybe a few minutes ago or a few skips ago, depending on if you're iPadding it, this one, is are levels going to matter? At the end of the gameplay, at the end of this season, are levels going to matter? Now I'm seeing a lot of head shaking.
No.
We've heard lots of no, it isn't necessarily an important thing to get up to a certain level. We're not going to level caps. We're not going to level anything.
No.
Is there any advantage in getting to level 5, 10, 15, 30, 50?
No.
Sheer enjoyment of your game is the only advantage of low versus high level.
Yeah. This is all about
Are you
interpretation
having a good
of
time?
story. So.
Right. So there isn't really any reason for you to think that you have to try to, play
No.
for 50 hours in between in order to get up to the same
Only
level.
if you want to, and only if you can.
All right.
So no.
Yeah, I mean, if they're the only advantage I could think of is that more playing means more experience that you can interpret into your story.
True.
Right? That's about it. Otherwise, you
just
kind
more
of do
playing.
your own thing. So, no.
So our next question takes a massive turn from that, and
Okay.
that is from Kat. How overambitious is it to do season 1 and season 2 at the same time?
I think it's a fantastic idea.
I don't think it's overambitious at all, honestly.
I don't either, because I think the way that this season is structured with your writing, Joe, we're basically just telling a story. So create yourself a random character, come up with a concept, and then do this experience.
If you can dovetail these two seasons together, hell, more power to you. I don't think it would be all that difficult.
No.
I would like to hear how people do it.
Season 1 is all about just the random aspects of starting your character.
Mm-hmm.
That really doesn't have any it doesn't pertain to how season 2 is being done. So
And some people may be using their
I think you
character
can
for
do
season
both
1,
of them
so-
together just fine.
I mean, what we're asking you to do in season 1 is you're generating a random character, and then you'd have to come up with some kind of story type of experience for that character anyway. There's
Right.
no reason at
Right.
all that you couldn't use the season 2 framework to tell that story.
Oh,
And
for sure.
In fact, in some ways, it may be easier for some people than trying
And
to
it-
come up with a framework on their own.
It might build for a more interesting playthrough.
I think the hardest thing about it would be that if you do it, we're going to ask you to document and report back.
Mhm.
In one form or another.
Because I would love to know
Now-
more about that.
If you're solely listening through and you're getting hung up on some of the level caps that we introduced in season 1, if you're doing this after the fact, that really doesn't pertain as much. The whole reason that we started with some of these level limits early on in season 1, and by the way did get rid of them, is just so we could keep everyone kind of at the same point.
Mhm.
So we could all kind of have shared experiences around the same sort of level point. But if you're coming at this after the fact, that really doesn't have the same impact, or it doesn't pertain quite as much. So you can just kind of let that sift through your consciousness and just as you pointed out, build your story and merge the two.
It sounds like what we're saying, Kat, is go for it. Because
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
to speak to Matt's point, let us know.
Yeah. Let us know how it goes.
Another interesting part about all of the role play that we have is that we've not said anything about requiring choosing a particular race, right? So one of the things that was difficult for me in season 1 is not having, when you actually randomize season 1, right?
It's okay, Matt. It's okay.
I know, I'm just a little bit more tense. When you choose your character, there are maybe reasons why you might choose a particular race in the game. And so so Jakar asks, what is your favorite race? It's a loaded question because Jakar's Khajiit. But anyway, I tend to fall back to Khajiit and Nords.
Okay.
Only because I don't really know the backstory on the Red Guard and things like that. So
sure.
I think it's an interesting question, though. If you start, what is your favorite race to play? To role play.
That's a difficult question because each race has a unique aspect that is enticing of themselves.
Yeah.
If you do, a lot of research into that race. I've always had a penchant for the Dunmer. I think they're an interesting lot. Argonians are kind of interesting. I kind of like those. But I honestly have not really delved much into, Khajiits. Even Nords, really. I mean, Nords to me just kind of seem like me.
Right.
So it's not as interesting because it's familiar.
less
Well, I gotta say though too, that you know, it seems like my favorite race is always the character that I'm playing at the time.
Well,
you know what I'm
there's that,
saying?
there's that.
Like when I'm playing Vander, I'm like, God, I love Bosmer. Oh, they're the best, right?
Right.
You know, but when I'm playing Idastog, you know, I'm like, God, I love Nords. Nords are the best. You know? And then, of course, what am I going to say if I'm playing Twist? I'm not going to say I don't like orcs. I love orcs.
Yeah, I
you
do
know,
love orcs.
So, you know, to me, that's an impossible question to answer. There was a time when I would have answered that question very quickly, and I would have said Bosmer, without a doubt. The first character I ever created was a Wood Elf, and I just kind of like that whole vibe. However, the more I've pushed myself to experiment with some of the other things out there, the more I've realized that I don't have a favorite. My favorite is whatever character I'm into at that moment.
Right. Do you find yourself crafting a story, though, around a particular race in game, or do you wait for it to sort of open itself up? Like if Joe said, "Okay, now you've got to play a high elf," right? And I said, "Now you've got to play a Nord." I mean, would you be dissatisfied with that?
No.
I think there was a time when I might have been, but now I love challenges like that. That's part of what I really liked about the Season 1 challenge.
Right, because
I like it when
know
somebody gives me a rule, and then they say something like, "You are going to play an Argonian." Well, no, you know, there was a time when I swore up and down that I wasn't going to play any character that had a tail. I wasn't any.
No, was it really about tails?
Yeah, it was about tails. But you know, I've played Khajiit now and stuff like that, and I'm thinking I like the idea that someone would say something like that, because then my response is, okay, I'm going to make the most kick-ass Argonian you've ever seen.
I want to know why no tails. Are they not stealthy?
Nah, yeah. To me, it was more of a joke. It was a kind of a joking point, you know. It's just like, for some reason, I couldn't get into the beast races, and so I threw that out as a reason just to be an asshole. But yeah.
It's like people saying they're allergic to raisins just because they don't like them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm allergic to grapes. I only eat raisins.
No, actually, I think my first character was an orc. I do like the orcs just for that kind of, I don't know, the tribal aspect of them. I like the Dunmer, I guess kind of for the same reason, but a more sophisticated one. I mean, Dunmer really are kind of tribal, but in a very refined sense, with the whole ancestor worship and that kind of thing. But I would agree. I don't have I won't say that I don't have a preference. I mean, I suppose I do, but I think any of the races can be fun because it's really all about the character. And each race brings in an element that you can really expand upon, whether it's Redguard or Orc, High Elf, whatever, Altmer, whatever you want.
There's always something.
Yeah.
What I tend to really like too is characters that buck the stereotypes of their races. Okay. So, you know, the High Elf Archer instead of the Bosmer. Right. That kind of thing. The orc who's not a warrior, he's a kind of a mousy, scaredy cat thief type, right? You know, stuff like that, which I think is
see. And for me, I always liked kind of accentuating that stereotype almost. You know, take the orc to the nth degree. He's not just a warrior; he's the biggest mofo warrior, the baddest, kick-ass warrior, and just. Is like death incarnate, you know.
The baddest of the bad.
The baddest of the bad. So it's really interesting to kind of juxtapose that play style.
You see an orc courier.
You don't see too many orc couriers. True enough. I got
there you go. Yep.
With your fucking letter.
Boy, been looking for you.
Where's my fucking tip, eh?
Come on.
Hand it over.
Fucking bastard.
You know, I'm not a person who uses the F word liberally, I would say. Like,
except for those characters.
But like
there's something about Twist
And St. Billy,
And
Billy. You know, I can't use the New England accent without throwing it in there, and I can't do twist without throwing it in there either. So it's an affectation that keeps me on track.
Well, and that's one of the things when you're recording, you do find sort of those home words that get you back into that sense of that's how I know how that character's supposed to sound.
You know, and I know when we've talked to Jess in the past, she's definitely brought that up. There's, you know, in order to get into character, there's certain phrases or words that you'll go through, kind of mantra, and she's like, there it is,
and you can snap right into it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. There's the whole thing of getting into it at the start, and then there's the other thing too of, do you have some kind of a phrase or affectation that you can use during the performance or whatever it is to get yourself back on track if you feel like you're straying.
Right.
And that was one of the things that I was able to do with Twist that made it possible for me to do, you know, a live stream that was 7 hours long, all improvisation in character without falling out of it. Because I could build in that, right? You know, so if I felt like I was slipping, I would come back to that.
You almost need it for something, you know, to that extent.
But you get that when you're recording audiobooks too. If you got to come back, character sort of resurfaces later.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's exactly the same thing.
Because you can't always find somebody to play it for you,
right?
So that you can punch in. You just got to remember what that person sounds like.
What I'm really appreciating about the work that you have both done with your audiobook recordings, just through this season 2 here, is the ability to reconnect with a vocal after potentially weeks of not doing it. It's not easy to just snap back into it sometimes. I mean, unless it's just you being you. If you're actually characterizing, it's not. If you're characterizing a voice to present as a fictitious person, just popping into that character can take some effort.
And I was really glad that you sent along the sample that I had sent to you, because it was finished from the stuff that I had done, and I didn't have it with me, so I was listening to it in one ear and talking along with it while I was reading the script off of here and replacing names. Right.
So, and what Matt's referring to is this next piece that's coming up is I had made some changes kind of last minute after he had already recorded his part of it. So I'm like, there's like 2 parts where I need you to redo it.
Yep.
So knowing the fact that if you just say a word and you try to splice it in, because it's not a flow of the original,
like those form letters we used to
it's going to just
hello, we'd like to talk to you, Matthew, about
exactly. It's going to be so awful. So what I had done is that I snipped out a fairly a large section that would give kind of a broader view of what he had recorded originally, so that he could try to duplicate it. And honestly, in the end result, I think it was flawless.
That must come down to your editing.
No one is going to know.
Matt's narration vocalizations are like butter.
But
yeah,
I would really love to be able to get like big jobs doing that.
I think we have a new molasses.
We can never replace molasses. And not very many movie studios are ready to take, sounds recorded from our minivan.
You never know. They don't need to know.
They don't need to know.
They don't need to know.
Although it does have those nice truck tires on it.
That's true.
That's the other way.
Oh, that's right.
That's for van tires on the truck.
Van tires on the truck.
All right, what do we got?
So as a follow-up to that one, right, it's a little bit different. We'll get back to some of these other questions. If you were placed on Tamriel, what race would you want to be?
What would I want to be? Well, this is more about survivability. So if I actually had to be one of these races, then perhaps I wouldn't want to be Dunmer, whose culture has basically been annihilated.
Right.
Maybe I want to be one of the races that's perhaps a bit more secure.
The annihilating side?
The annihilators.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question, because Tamriel's pretty broad. So it doesn't specifically imply Skyrim.
True.
So it could be all of it. The geographic location, the climate. Now, if it was specific to Skyrim, I don't know if I'd want to be Argonian. Speaking of survivability, warm
I was going to
area,
say,
swamps,
does
all
Frostfall
sudden into-
affect cold-blooded animals?
I don't think he makes any distinction.
No. Well, in the general game or the lore, I don't think there's a lot of distinction there. But I think just in a broader sense of how do you see yourself, what do you see yourself as, is more, I think, what the question is alluding to. But
I'd be a Draugr.
If I could be anything, I'd be a Draugr.
I'd be a Draugr.
well, if that's the case, then I wouldn't be a dragon priest.
Oh, there you go.
Those
I wanna
dragon
be a
priests
dragon.
are a-holes, though.
They really kind of are, aren't they?
They kind of are. Yeah. Well, not all of them were. The Skyrim dragon priests were a-holes. My understanding is that the ones in that Mora didn't go completely bonkers.
As far as the game playable races, I don't know. That's a really good question. Probably, I'd want to be one of the elven races. I don't know why, but I'd like to be an elf. I don't know about an orc or an orsimer, but I don't know, one of the elven races.
Sounds good to me.
I think I'd try to play an orc just because I haven't played an orc.
Yeah, why not?
Sure.
I guess if I'm a Draugr, technically I'm Nord, aren't I?
Well, technically,
You are.
I'm just dry.
just dry.
Just a parched.
Get that man a drink.
You're a raisin Nord.
Oh, it's not even a man.
Needs a Draugr logger. Wagga.
Yeah, so I guess the whole dragon priest aspect for me is kind of bringing out the piglet philosophy. You can't be afraid of anything if you're the scariest thing there.
Oh. That is very true.
That's true.
Assuming you could make yourself the scariest, Vander might change and become the scariest.
For far different reasons.
Exactly.
A little too creeped me out.
It's always sneaking up.
What's wrong with him? No, I would probably be an elven race, maybe an orc.
Okay.
Maybe an orc.
Cool. All right.
So this is a two-part question. Of course, one says Imperials or Stormcloaks. But there's an important secondary question to that, which I think we can answer separately. What's your favorite hold?
Ooh.
Not like figure four or whatever. But
Right.
Full Nelson.
go for the full.
Full Nelson. That's fantastic.
I don't know that I have a favorite hold. I just like finally playing parts of the game that,
God damn it! This is another one like this race ones. I like them all, but for different reasons. You know what I'm saying?
Well, if we go Stormcloak or Imperial, I don't know. I like the Stormcloaks in philosophy, but not necessarily in application.
Yeah. I'm an Imperial guy.
Does it make a difference for what your favorite hold would be if you were Imperial versus Stormcloak?
Potentially, but
I don't know.
Explain. I feel like
Elaborate.
like a high
you.
school literature teacher. I've been waiting to say that since high school, haven't you?
That's why Joe got it.
Joseph in row 2. Could you tell me why you'd like to be an Imperial and what is your favorite hold? Please explain. Would you come up to the board and write your answer?
I mean, for me, I like the Imperials, but I've got a very kind of distinct view of the flavor, I guess, of Imperial that I like. There's sort of I think there's a depiction of the Imperials as being pompous, which I don't really like. I like the idea of a strong Imperial multicultural army.
right.
I like the idea of, a division of soldiers from different walks who've all come together to fight this thing, right? And they're you know, they're in an army that equips them, and you know, they fight like a machine. You know, I like the idea of that, unit. Right? Yeah. Whereas what I like about the Stormcloaks is I, like you're saying, I like the idea of their philosophy, but I hate sort of the image that they portray in the way that they fight, right? I like that sort of idea of, you know, the salty Roman unit that fights as a unit, and they use the techniques they've been taught, and they fall back on their training, and they listen to their commanders, and they boom, 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 you know, just, you know, I love that whole thing. That whole thing just is fascinating to me.
I'm just picturing the life of Brian in my head. Okay, they did do the roads.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what else have the Romans done for us?
Yeah.
Literature.
Yeah.
Writing. Poetry.
Yeah.
Philosophy.
But you know, that's kind of what that is, though, is that's a very personalized image in my brain of who I think of the Imperials as.
Knowing you as I do, you appreciate their tactics.
Kind of, yeah.
You've always kind of been one to really absorb and appreciate tactical style.
You know what's funny? That's true, because as a kid, a lot of my friends had a box full of, you know, little green army men.
Yeah.
I had a box that was full of Roman soldiers and
Did
catapults.
you really?
Yeah, I literally did.
Oh man, I had a giant Guns of Navarone set.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, it was a big mountain set, and it had the Allies and it had the Germans, and
wow,
it was just huge.
Dude,
and then I'd use like rubber binders, and I would shoot from. I'd take turns from each side and shoot
ballista.
I'm pretty sure you didn't let me play with it.
Probably not.
Oh man,
it's sad to think that I've known Joe since he had a Guns of Navarone set.
Look it up. It was amazing. Amazing. Yeah, I guess I wouldn't. I kind of lean or migrate towards the Stormcloaks just for the imagery, but I definitely appreciate that kind of regiment, single yet all one type of imperial mindset.
Something about that is really interesting to me. If you haven't had a chance to read them and are interested in a really dense read, the books by Stephen Erickson feature these men and women who fight as units in this big kind of imperial army machine that you can tell is kind of modeled after the Roman style of warfare, and it focuses on a particular group within that army called the Bridge Burners. And they're just like, it's so funny because what I love about the way that he depicts it, what's interesting about it is all the members of this army have just a really sort of bluntly realistic and almost fatalistic view of their future, where they say, okay, we're part of this army, we're professional soldiers, this is how we're going to die. I mean, we all know that's going to happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to fight every battle to the nth degree. We're going to come up with all kinds of, you know, crazy strategies to overcome our enemies. And it's interesting because they don't have any particular love for their leaders. They just fight because it's what they do.
Yep.
It's what they do, right?
The Spartans.
Right. And so they get things happen to them, like they get backed into these terrible situations where they expect to lose everyone, and nobody flees. Everybody's just got this attitude like, well, this is where we make our stand. Bang, let's go, right? And there's no question. And I think there's something about that when I think about the Imperial Army, that's kind of the mental image I have in my head, that this isn't a group of individuals, this is a group of people who've decided to fight as a unit. And that's what I like about it.
It's its own kind of organism. It isn't really individual at that point.
Yeah. It's very cool.
Cool. Holds. As far as holds go, I don't know. I kind of like I guess both the Falkreath and the Riften areas, just because they're gorgeous.
Yeah.
I like that temperate zone, the trees and all that. Markhart, that whole area over there is interesting just because of the mountains and the landscape. But I think if I had to settle in one, it would either be probably down near Falkreath or Riften.
Is it because it feels comfortable?
Yeah, it does. There's a certain a certain level of comfort, a certain just hominess, I guess.
It doesn't feel austere like some of the other
Right.
parts of the map really
true.
are. You know, where the people are hard scrabble trying to,
It's
tear a living out of.
it's kind of the atmospheric equivalent of comfort food, I guess.
Like that.
Yeah.
Let me just wrap up in this.
Yeah, I mean, you can totally picture yourself just strolling without a care, enjoying a beautiful autumn day,
I need a hammock mod.
except for all the bears and
Is
wolves.
there a hammock mod?
But there's that.
But it is beautiful, and you could stay there and not feel like, oh, I'm in imminent danger. There's something comfortable about that. Maybe, too comfortable.
So I guess the more that southern area of Skyrim, I don't know the other provinces as well to know if there's a particular hold or an area
Sure.
like in Cyrodiil or whatever. But as far as Skyrim goes, I think I would migrate towards the southern part of it.
If I had to pick one, it would probably be the Reach, but I reserve the right to be a pain in the ass on this one too, because I tend to like whatever hold it is I'm focused on. I've had a couple of characters who have been regionally focused. Obviously, Etienne on the Reach, and that for me that was kind of a mind-altering sort of experience playing him and being focused there.
That rugged environment with just the monumental scale of the Reach.
It's huge.
That's would be kind of my secondary, just because it's just so overwhelming.
Right.
Anywhere that can make you just feel that small, how can you not look up to? I mean,
Yeah. It's massive and it's very dangerous as well. And I think
I don't like the danger.
what
He laughs in the face of danger.
the problem I had was it was the hold where I would always go and get lost.
Oh, it's
And-
so easy to get lost there.
Yeah, and I decided
Out of all of
when
them.
I started doing the passage, I'm like, I'm going to create a character who owns the Reach. So I'm gonna force myself to
And
really dig into
I
the
think
Reach
you did.
and
Successful.
figure out how the hell how it's set up, how to get from place to place. And by the end of that playthrough, I feel like that character Etienne had sort of established himself as this kind of crazy ghost-like figure who haunted the Reach.
Oh,
Almost.
he knew it
Really
like the
cool.
back of his hand.
Right? And honestly, the idea to do that didn't exactly come from Etienne. It was, the experience I had prior with Centrosi, having him own the swamps. I decided he was going to be the guy that wasn't afraid to go into the swamps by Morthal
yeah.
and tackle anything that was in there. But the problem I had was that the geographic area of that swamp is
Pretty small. Yeah.
I had it pretty well explored, in a few hours. Whereas the Reach, I did 130 episodes of the passage, and I think about the first 50 episodes it was at least the first 50 episodes were just pretty much all in the Reach exclusively.
They were, yeah.
Nothing else.
No, absolutely.
So yeah, I love that area. So fun.
Yeah, it's
So fun.
so fun. It's a crazy area. It really is. I get lost all the time when I'm in the Reach.
Yeah. Me too. I get lost when we're doing this podcast.
Shall we move on to the next
I
question?
think we should.
Vampire or werewolf?
Oh, it's so fun.
Werepire.
Vamp Wolf.
I like Vamp Wolf.
I'm going werepires.
Werepire?
I haven't played either.
Their pyre.
Their large pyre.
My pyre.
Funeral pyre.
Pyre.
Empire.
Apple pyre.
Apple pyre.
Huh? Vampire werewolf.
Hey, is that pie?
Hey, that echo works for Vander.
We actually could make pie sometime during a podcast.
We
That'd
could,
be
and we could totally eat it in front of you.
Because if we would have cooked an apple pie at the last studio, it would have probably not been good.
I don't know
Yeah.
how we would have cooked it.
We would have to be like an easy bake oven. Probably not a good idea.
This light bulb's not strong
Hard to
enough.
do with LED bulbs, yeah.
LED bulb, it's just not getting hot.
What do we got next?
No, really, that was it. Vampire
That's it.
werewolf.
Vampire werewolf. I like
So for the folks who are posting things that are being removed, it's probably a good idea to ask good questions, join in the conversation. I have no idea what's being removed because I'm not really paying attention. Thanks to our moderators for
Yeah.
keeping this a mostly family friendly kind of show.
And
Yeah.
focused.
Family making show.
Not to call anyone out, but the rituals of the sorcerer don't be a dick. It's that simple. It's that simple.
Banhammer.
And I hope you're still listening.
So
The rituals of the sorcerer, Dick.
So, how do we know that the rituals of the sorcerer didn't just join Patreon at $100 a shot? But that's,
We don't.
That's never going to happen.
So,
I have a feeling that's probably not.
so
No, it's not.
probably not.
The rituals of the sorcerer.
But that is the
join
reason why we have
Val.
such a good community, right? I mean, we have standards somewhere.
We do. We try.
Yeah.
At least our community does.
Yeah.
They're a closely guarded secret.
Yeah.
Standards.
So one of the, it's not a question, but I have a comment to make, and that is I was not on Discord for a long time, and I was appropriately and rightfully flabbergasted at the size of the group now.
It has
What,
grown.
200
It has
plus?
grown.
Lots of active folks, people all over the planet. It's so nice to see
Yeah.
people helping each other and answering questions and giving people sort of random suggestions to help with their game. And
Absolutely.
I'm sure that there are some other communities that are out there like it, but nothing like ours. Just awesome.
Right.
Yeah, we've broken 300 at this point.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's growing by leaps and bounds.
Cool.
So the invite your friends thing works.
I guess.
Right on. I'm going to address the vampire werewolf thing, and I like both naturally for two different reasons. One, I don't necessarily like the Skyrim version of the vampire.
Okay.
I like more kind of that, I don't know, the almost the Bela Lugosi, the more regal
Yeah.
portrayal of the vampire, almost a tragedy in ways.
That it isn't a monster.
Yeah, right,
And that
right,
what we
right.
would think of the traditional
Right.
monster sense, bad guy.
Well, it comes down to really perspective and what drives you, and it's always justified in your own mind.
But
You're
there is-
always
but there
doing
really
the right
isn't an
thing.
opportunity for regality.
But there really isn't. Yeah, no, the Skyrim vampire really is not a regal creature, which is too bad.
Well, yeah. Even the master vampires, the way that they're portrayed is like, you know, kind
Right,
of
right. I don't necessarily like that.
It's
I
just
like
weird, you know. I
you
don't
know, I like the idea of that regal, high end kind of.
Do you think
vampire.
Harkon is kind of in that class, or?
I think Harkon was. I think he was at maybe one point,
Okay.
but had kind of gone down that self-annihilation path for so long that he just became like the rest of them.
Okay.
So I think he had potential, or at least you could say, or at least see that he used to be.
Where does one encounter Harkon?
He is in
Castle Volkahar.
Volkahar, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is, I can see it. I can't think of the area, but I can
It's
see
like
it on the map.
Big vampire lord.
Yeah.
guy.
What part of the map is that on? What's that off of? It's kind of
Well-
a little corner.
Yeah, I mean it's you kind of have to make your way up toward Solitude first, and then kind of over the
That's
mountains
what it
there
is.
down to the
I
to the
could
far western
visualize
coast.
it, but I couldn't think of all the right points. But werewolves, I like werewolves just for their sheer emotion.
Okay.
They're just that bestial, that sheer bestial vibrance, I guess, is kind of enticing in ways to just release and just go.
Sure.
Yeah, they're more
They're very primal.
primal.
I
yeah.
like the primal aspect of the werewolf. So it really depends on kind of the mood and the type of character I'm into.
I'm assuming you can't be both.
No.
And I think there are some mods out there that claim to allow you to be hybrids, but I've never experimented with them, and I just,
It doesn't, I don't,
Doesn't seem to lend itself.
the concept in itself doesn't really make sense to me.
yeah.
So,
Well, let's.
I have contracted vampirism and was not feeling particularly good about it. That
Okay.
was early on with Iron
yeah,
And
that'll
I
happen.
tried to find the fastest way to get cured of that, and not that there would be any advantage in playing that way, right? Or to
Right,
become
right.
a vampire, but
Right.
you know.
Well, he would have been able to run around in the winter as naked as he wanted to and never had any
That's-
problem with it.
Well, that's
Because
true. That's true.
They don't have issues with the cold, so
Okay, well,
that would have
good
been
to
a
know.
bonus.
I don't
Like,
think
I can go back and
I don't
restart
think
on
Iron's issues with cold were the problem. It was with axes and blades
Yes,
and
yeah, it was
arrows.
with fighting.
Oh, okay.
I think that's where his
So being
nakedness got
struck.
the best of it.
Yes.
Yeah, well, let's turn it back on the community. Tell us, community, blister wart or imp stool?
Ooh.
Blister wart or imp stool?
Let's see it. Come on, chat it up.
Thought provoking.
That's
Come on now.
That's a tough one.
Hey Matt, could you do me a favor and move that bottle?
Move this,
Yeah.
so you can see.
Alright.
Yeah.
In the meantime, were there anything else?
Blister wart. We have a vote for blister wart.
Okay.
And why?
Blister wart or imp stool?
We need to know why. This is not just a shout. Blister, except simply because of the name.
Ah.
All right.
Well,
That's
everybody's got their
fair enough.
reasons.
So
that's fair
hang
enough.
on. We've got 3 blister warts and 3 imp stools.
Ah.
Oh, it's tied up here at the halftime.
Getting tight.
Need that paralysis potion because they're pretty is why people like to have blister wart. Which sounds like the opposite of what blister wart would be.
It sounds like hemorrhoids.
They both
Well,
sound
that
like
could
a
be an imp
disease.
stool too, though.
They both sound like a disease that Belthor has.
All right, good answers, everyone. Good
Oh
answers.
no, hang on. We're not talking about interjecting Nimrut into this.
Nimrut.
Nimrut?
That's what it says, Nimrut. You find that in false time, right?
I don't know.
You can.
I guess. Yeah, paralysis potions are pretty damn handy. Yeah. So
I'm
let's.
just too punchy for this conversation. All right, what's the next one?
So swamp fungal pod, and swamp fungal pod plus.
I thought maybe you had just lost
Glowing
control of your
mushroom.
brain. I didn't know where swamp fungal pod.
Oh, no.
Fungal pod or glowing mushroom?
Swamp fungal pod or glowing mushroom.
I know my choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know mine as well.
Matt.
I know yours.
I would have only gone for the glowing mushroom because I'm not sure that I've ever looked for a swamp fungal pod. That sounds like something you'd want a cream for.
I need a salve.
See, we've got swamp fungal pod.
How-
Why?
hey,
Why do
listen to
people
me,
want-
now.
Why do people want the fungal pod?
Those of you who are picking swamp fungal pod, does it have anything to do with Robard Graves?
It really sounds like
Yeah.
Robard needs to go get
No.
some inoculations.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's too bad. You got yourself some swamp fungal pod.
Yeah, right? Yes, he popped a fungal pod up his nose, and that's what
Yes, he did.
made him high, and
Seriously?
he was dancing around with a twig hat and a boner for like 4
Oh
days.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that was the story, right?
EJ,
Oh,
I'm really
don't.
sorry. Stu has to go and sit on the couch now because you forgot about Robard.
Oh.
Strudel might have brought it back. Best story ever. Look at that.
Oh, see, now he's sad.
I'm sorry, Stu has to go lay down. He's overcome.
He's so sad.
He has to go find some swamp fungal pod. Is there any back there? Oh no, he's down for the count. Here he comes.
And just like that, he's back.
Yep.
Diva Stew. I like Diva Stew, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So
I've got a rep.
the thing is that you have to tell me what swamp fungal pod would be used for, because I really don't know that I.
You can use it in a
fungal
paralysis poison.
pod. Okay,
Yeah, it's
For
an ingredient.
erections lasting more than 4 days.
consult the doctor.
Well, it causes erections for 4 days. What counteracts it, I really don't know. I mean,
Neuron Rouge.
Robard had to just let it run its
Possibly.
course. So,
Is there some kind of counteracting agent to swamp fungal pod? Because when you inadvertently have Robard walk into you, you might want to offer something.
yeah,
Anybody back off.
probably blister wart.
I don't want to know how you apply it. Let's just leave it.
Hey, Gemma's here. Everybody,
Hey, Gemma.
Gemma.
Hey.
So,
I
next
personally like the glowing mushroom because it's good for smithing.
It is smithing potions.
Yep. You can smith the hell out of a glowing mushroom.
You can. You can.
Ain't nothing you can't smith
Sharp.
after a couple glowing mushrooms.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Here's
What's
one.
the next
Here's
quiz?
one for everybody. All right. So, Nordic barnacle, charis eggs.
Ooh.
They're called eggs, right?
Yeah.
They're not called charis balls.
They're not.
No,
Because there's
there-
thousands of them.
there's a big difference, I think.
Okay. Charis
I
eggs
think we're looking for the feminine version.
Or
or Nordic barnacles.
Charis eggs. Zephyr, right on it. Charis eggs.
Yeah.
This is also a spelling test for anyone who's wondering.
Yeah. Zephyr got it right.
Because if you can quickly type Nordic barnacles, that's probably as good as a quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog, right?
Barnacles because barnacles.
Because I hate that one cave with all the charises.
Oh, yeah, I think I know which cave that is.
Well,
I
you
think
mean
you were heading towards that cave.
I was, yeah, because I was
It's
in
under the
I was in
lighthouse.
tower under the lighthouse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Did you ever get to the end of that?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
because I
you
keep
gotta get to
getting
the end of
killed
it.
over and over and
No,
over. And
you
over
got to
and
get to
over.
the end of it so you can really die.
I'm not joking. I've probably died 300 times there now.
Okay,
Because
I'm
I
going to
don't-
give you a spoiler at the very end.
There's a
There's
big
a
one?
giant charis.
Yes.
Excellent. So I need to figure out, because I keep
It's
getting
the
down to like
boss.
almost no health, and then I end up taking as many health potions and everything else as I can, and I just don't have enough. And I don't know enough about how to cast a health spell or something, because I haven't learned them yet. So
Strangely, when you get to the giant one, it doesn't have any more balls than the other one. The other ones. the
They're just
smaller
bigger.
ones. I don't think they are.
No?
I think they're the same size as all the other ones' balls.
Well, that's curious.
Which is odd.
Huh.
well, Connor says the Nordic barnacle because it's less likely to get him killed.
Well, that's a good
Retrieving
point.
it.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if you can
As
avoid
Matt
the
can
slaughter
attest.
fish.
Yeah, over. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
If there's some sort of prize for dying the most, I might be up there. So I don't think that
We
there
can
is.
probably come up with something.
Matt's got goals. It's good to have goals.
Yeah. See, I appreciate what people said when I was on my way to the podcast started, that having a live Matt is better than having a dead one. So,
Well, yes.
although that had to do, I think, with driving, that I probably shouldn't have been reading that while I was.
Probably
moving
not,
across
but
the-
it's good to know that you weren't texting it.
No.
Yeah.
No. Technically, I was actually sitting at a light, waiting to turn. I think down onto 24th. So.
And talking to your
To
device.
talking to my device. Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of those, if we release this 7 years from now, will be outside of the statute of limitations. So it's really in trouble. Anyway, so most people are saying Charis for invisibility, invisibility, invisibility,
Yeah,
invisibility.
that's a good one.
I think we should do 2 more big quiz points. Why not?
Okay. You got one, Joe, you want to throw out or not?
Can we do a weapon choice?
Hmm.
You guys have a weapon
No.
choice between staffs or something?
No.
No. I don't know.
Let's see.
Different kind of spells. save Sadia? Do you cable Sadia?
I turn her over every time.
Every time turn her over.
Yeah, no, I only, well, that's actually turn her over or save her.
She pulls a knife on you. Turn her over.
I've only ever turned her
Maybe she
over
thought
once,
you
and
had
I,
whetstone and she was asking for some help.
I've only turned her over once, and I didn't feel nearly as bad as I thought I would.
Yeah.
By turning her over.
See?
Yeah.
See?
So,
It's kind of good.
Is there a big reward in turning her over?
no, he
Because-
just made you feel better about it.
Okay, nice job. Thanks
Yeah.
for helping. Right.
Yeah, pretty much.
You get a gold star.
Yeah, pretty much.
Done a huge
Scratch this
service
sticker for you.
to Tamriel.
Huzzah!
And is there ever any return of Sadia, like the
No.
revenge of Sadia?
No.
When you hit
That
level
would be
40?
a brilliant quest mod, though.
Oh, it would be.
The return of Sadia, like
The Revenge of
she
Sadia.
comes back pissed.
Yeah, she escapes her
I
captors
know, right?
and comes after the Dragonborn.
Them-
Oh, I can feel it right now. Like
Ooh, she teams up with Mirak.
you get through that, right? You turn her over, and then another quest kicks off that brings you out to that spot where all the Alakir warriors were hiding
Oh, yeah,
out.
yeah.
Oh.
And you find them all slaughtered, and she's gone, and then it kicks off some kind of
Oh.
That would
That
actually
would
be
be
really
pretty
cool.
right? Now you
Like
found
it.
out that you were right all along to turn her over, but now you got to hunt her down again, right?
Yeah.
No, now, Strudel says, pretend to turn her over, kill Kamatu, and take both his money and her reward.
Well, that's just gaming the system.
If it's allowable, clearly somebody's done it. Perhaps Strudel has done it.
I'm guessing.
I
she
didn't know
has.
that you could do both.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about
There,
it.
there's some of these quests that you can kind of, get away with playing them off in interesting ways like that. You don't have to take the obvious path. Sometimes you can straddle the line a little bit. That might be one of those. I don't know.
Are there others like that? I would be interested to know.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of. I did one like that recently.
Oh, sure, everybody else has done it. Look at
I've
these
done
people
that.
who have done it.
I've done that.
Well, you also have a bunch of suckers who haven't done it yet. Those characters are guys.
Oh, I've done it frequently. You guys are so dumb. What's in the water up there in Minnesota? Just,
Lead.
Lots
Yeah.
of
yeah.
Lots of
that.
lead.
Just ask the companies on the St. Paul side. They know what's in the
But
water.
I'm older now, so it's better.
Uh-huh.
Ooh, Companions or College of Winterhold.
Companions for me.
By the way, that was not prefaced with a large capital letters question. I just happened to read it. 'Cause I saw that was a question mark.
Wow, sounds like someone knows Matt.
Yeah, Matt's a rules lawyer.
How expensive is that meeting?
I would say Companions as it's written. Winterhold, Mage's Quest. Out of,
Tweaked.
well, potential. I don't like the way it's implemented, but I like the idea. I think the idea could be amazing. I think the way that it was implemented in the game was very shortchanged. It could have been so much better. Because basically, you can start that out at level 1, and by 10 you're the Archmage. It's like I can barely wipe myself, but obey me.
But here's a backup.
Yeah. It's like Jesus.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of quests where they could have provided you with a much more interesting and
Much
graceful
richer experience.
alternative. I think there are some quests, where they always try to steer you one direction or another, right? But I think you should be able to opt out of being the Archmage, and
Right.
but not to just opt out, but to be able to do it in a way that's graceful and interesting.
Right. Or extend it so that in a way that feels meaningful, so that when you do get the opportunity, you actually feel like you earned it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree.
Now there are mods, of course, that will alter this or give you some of those options, but still, overall, I think the Mage Quest line could have been much better from the get-go. So,
Yeah.
I like the concept of the Mage Quest line better. I like the way the companions were implemented better.
be interesting to know, and I haven't done either, so I can't answer, but I'd be interested to know from Bethesda's standpoint how they determine each of the quests, right? I mean, do they send everybody off into a brainstorming session and say, come back, you know?
Yeah, how are they
Yeah.
developed? What kind of teams
Right.
were put
That
on what?
is a process I'd love to be part of.
I would
That
be
would be
really
really
interested in that.
Yeah.
We just,
You know,
I just watched a
what's-
thing about how they did the Transformers stories, right? And they basically gave it to a guy like on a Friday and said, we need these on Tuesday, and he had to come up with the backstory. But I wonder if it is like that. You know, do you get into a big
In
writing
some
session
respects,
like
it could
writing?
be. It could be. I'd be interested to see what's lying on the floor. That
Mhm.
just there was
Yeah.
no time or resources to implement.
Because I think
Yeah.
to your point, some of the quests have a significantly longer sort of time horizon, right? There's a bigger payoff. Some of them just sort of keep you coming along, right? You get
Right.
a good golf shot once in a while, you'll keep playing golf, right? And even if you mess up once in a while, you'll have a really good reason
Yeah.
to continue on in Skyrim. But, you know, some of them were the larger pieces crafted first and then all the little ones to intersperse.
Yeah, kind of how did it all come
How did
together?
it come together, right?
I think the ones that stand out for me are the ones that have more emotional punch
Yeah.
to them. The Companions is one of those. It's not certainly not the longest and most intricate quest line in the game, but it's got real emotional punch at the end, which
Right.
I think is great. The Dark Brotherhood quest line is probably hands down the one that most people would say that was their favorite if you
Right.
polled them.
Yep.
And I think in a lot of ways that has to do with not only is it a long quest, there's a lot going on in there, but it's got a real punch at the end too.
Right.
And the more that you're moved emotionally by a story, the more attached to it you become. I mean, it's just, you know, it's not rocket science. It makes sense. So I think that's where you're absolutely right. The Mage College quest line is not as appealing or as interesting because it feels like it was cut short somehow.
Right.
And it feels like it's too easy for you to attain that title. I feel as though almost like there should be some level restriction, but you know, that's an artificial way of doing that when what you should be doing is writing a good story, right?
So but then
Right,
here's,
right.
here's the follow-on question to that.
Mhm.
Does that change your perception of the Archmage?
It could.
Yeah.
Because if all of a sudden you walk up to the College of Winterhold and you realize, oh, I'm never going to get there, you know,
Yeah.
not very long later you're the Archmage. You
Yeah,
know, what does that
it
mean
totally
for all
does.
of the mages around
Oh yeah.
the
Yeah.
entire game? Oh, well, totally, I've done that, whatever. It's not like a big deal, right?
Yeah, well, the other thing
Right.
too that it does is it makes the current Archmage seem like a joke.
Well, it definitely lessens him.
Yeah, it does. I think they should have spent
He's
some
only
time
level 9.
pumping him up and making him appear like the powerful mage that he was
Right,
supposed to be,
the
right? But
Person of authority that he is.
yeah, he doesn't come off that way at all.
Not really. No. I mean, especially he's a Dunmer character, so there's that longevity of life that
Yeah,
you would think he would have, which means
Yeah.
he's had all this time to practice and perfect,
And you just breeze in, right?
and you just come
Yeah.
in and he gets wiped out,
yeah,
toot sweet.
yeah. He does. He gets wiped out pretty quickly. It seems
I mean,
like.
even if they wanted to take him out quickly, there could have been, as you had mentioned, a more emotional way of doing it that made you feel connected
Mhm.
somehow.
Who is the who is the haughty Dunmer mage on Solstheim? What was his name again? They're gonna say
The haughty,
the
Telvanni?
Telvanni mage, the
Oh,
arch nemesis
Marl's-
of Marl.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Come
on, people.
Unity. Faster.
Neloth, yes.
Neloth.
Oh, EJ wins. Oh, you all got it within
Okay,
seconds.
what we need, what
Nice
the mage college quest line needs
Is a Neloth.
a character with that kind of gravitas.
Yes.
Right?
I agree.
Instead they take a great character like Neloth and they put him in this weird little corner of Solstheim, right?
Right.
He should have been the dude running the college, and there should have been more story built around him. I guarantee you it would have been an amazing quest.
Yeah, that's
Something
a
like
very
that,
good point.
But, yeah.
It's a very good
This
point.
sounds really dorky, but I would love to just have us have a sort of chat Quizlet game sometime.
We should do that.
You know, if we can get 25 people on the stream or something like that,
God.
just we're gonna ask 30 questions and
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
If it's a quiz game, we'd get our asses kicked by the community with.
Oh no! We're asking the questions,
Oh,
not
okay,
answering.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Oh, then okay, we can do that.
It's always the advantage of the people writing the questions.
I suppose that's true.
But that would be kind of fun because I love seeing how fast people come back because I don't know, right? And to be able to play off of that, right? To think about how would you use a character like Neloth elsewhere in the game, and maybe other quest lines or whatever.
I loved the absolute eccentric and aloof and just dickish nature of Neloth. And his dialogue is so well written, and that's why he strikes me as I think he's one of the best characters in the game, and that's why I specifically chose him to be kind of like the foil for Marl, because I thought he'd be absolutely challenging, and it would be super fun to be in a situation where Neloth and Marl were sparring over something.
I mean, there really is no other character that is as self-assured as Marl than Neloth.
It's true.
I mean, really.
It's probably true. Oh yeah.
So yeah, it makes complete sense that they would be kind of butting heads because they're both right.
Yeah.
If you ask them.
I've never gotten to the point, right, where I've had the pleasure of walking Marl into Tel Mithrin, but I've always tried to imagine how I would do that dialogue improvisation.
Could you imagine the field day Marl would have on the apprentice that conjured the
Yeah.
what is that Atronach?
It's the ash.
The ash, Atronach that he couldn't control,
Mm-hmm.
and blaming it on Neloth because he didn't obviously teach his apprentices correctly.
And there's a whole side quest associated with Neloth too, where he's mistreated one of his apprentices so badly that they go off and do a whole bunch of nasty things, and you can track them down and find out a whole bunch of information about
This would have never happened.
about how nasty Neloth can be to his apprentices and stuff like that. So yeah, it would be a lot of fun to just kind of trot in there and have that experience. I'll have to do that someday.
In a place so rife with magic, you think that people would be smart enough not to send people off on the wrong path.
I guess there's a good point there.
Yeah. Ash Guardian, that's what
Ash Guardian, thank you.
So,
not an astronaut.
I like Astronaut though.
and Atronach.
Astronaut.
Astronaut.
Well, it's basically what it is.
We don't have any other questions in the queue here unless you have other quiz questions.
Oh, that's all I got. We had our fun this evening, ladies and gentlemen. We made a podcast out of thin air. Can you imagine that? That's
Seinfeld
amazing.
did it for years.
Yeah, now we've done it. Yeah, we want to thank you all for joining us tonight. It's been a lot of fun. It's great to do our first podcast. What we hope is many to come in this location. We will be endeavoring to make it better each time we do it and make the recordings as cleanly as we can. Joe is going to be putting together the production on this, and hopefully within a day or two we'll release this, and then shortly thereafter the story, right?
Something like that.
Yep, and as per usual, you'll find this podcast will be launched into our Unbound podcast RSS feed, which you can find on iTunes, Stitcher, and our website at charactercrusade.com. The following story, will also be released as a podcast into our Pocket Odysseys RSS feed. That is a separate podcast called Pocket Odysseys. You can find all of our podcasts by going to podcast.charactercrusade.com. You'll see them all lined up there, and you can subscribe to them, and this stuff will fly right into your podcatcher. If you subscribe, you don't even have to go out and look for it. It'll just show up, and then you can start listening. And it happens very quickly. Once we publish, it'll show up within minutes.
Yeah,
all right?
it does.
So that's the surest and best way to make sure that you always get it right away. So we would encourage you to do that.
We have one more question.
What's
Gail
that?
would like to know if there's any homework this time.
No.
No homework.
There is no homework. The only reminder here
Summer break. Oh no, it's not that long.
No, it's not that.
is we encourage you to just continue to periodically pause and think about those positive and negative charges. Look at the examples that I've given. Listen to the video that I created where I talked about the concept. It's just a good way, particularly with a challenge like this, to think about what your character is doing, when and why, and what sort of psychological impact that is going to have on the character and, as a consequence, your story going forward. And it's more important than ever in a challenge that's based purely on narrative. So be thinking about that. If you need to, go back and review those materials, which you can find at unbound.charactercrusade.com. That is also where you're going to find the submission form. So if you want to send us questions, comments, ideas, things you want us to comment on, go in there and use that form, send it along, and we'll address it in the next podcast.
And a quick reminder, typically when you are in class and people think there's no homework and you ask if there's homework and the teacher decides to give you homework, everyone will hate you.
Yes.
In this case, not so much, but
Yeah.
this will be good. Now, I think we are back on our regular schedule, 2 weeks.
Yes, we are. Now that we're moved in here, we'll be back on the 2-week schedule. So we will see you for the next Unbound podcast, episode 3, 2 weeks from tonight.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Thanks for joining, everybody.
That's it.
Thanks, everybody. We will see you in 2 weeks. Good night.
Good night. Later.
Bye-bye.